What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the ASTROLABE. Brought to you by King Pilled. I am your host and humble narrator, Matthew Erickson, here to guide you through the twisting, turning, guide you through everything that I've seen on Twitter over the past, on Twitter, or dropped in the King Pilled Discord that has intrigued me over the last 24 hours. And I'm late today, as usual. We get an evening lab again because I was deep diving on a couple issues, trying to make sure that I don't speak out of turn. Got some good stuff today. What's up, Rhonda Bolin, Gaga herself in the chat? That reminds me. I have to give you guys an update. Hit the like button. We got 32 watching now. We got 20 likes. Let's get those likes up. Help us keep the algorithm pumping to get this channel in front of more people. I need as much engagement as I can get. Give me likes. Give me some Trumps in the chat. Where are my Trumps at? The Trump-related ultramassive penis syndrome sufferers. We post eggplants in the chat as a way of fighting back against the algorithm and showing support for our brothers with Trumps, our brothers in arms, or something. Yes, I must give you an update. We have a new family member. And just a little bit ago, I got started late. Eastwood came up to see what I was up to as he's getting ready for bed, and I hadn't gone live yet. So he gave me a message that he wanted me to pass on to you guys. That brothers at full mast. That's right. The message is that Pig Durk and Pig She have had their baby. They've decided on a name. The newest member of the Durk family, a little girl. Her name is Snorderk. Now, my wife has informed me that this is a temporary name. We don't know for sure if her permanent name is going to be Snorderk. It's a nickname that they have come up with for her to tide over until they decide her permanent name. But she is... Snorderk is doing very well. She's very happy. She is... Apparently, Snorderk is going to be a mommy. Now, we haven't been given a timeline for this, given that this sweet little pig is only a day old. We haven't received a timeline, but I have been reliably informed that she is going to be a mommy, and that Pig She is very happy that she is a mommy now. I said, well, Pig She was a mommy before because she has Rock Durk and Fridge Durk and Babe Durk, the three previous three previous children of the Durk family that we've been familiar with. But apparently, now that she has another baby, she is a mommy again. And so she just became a mommy. She became a mommy before, but she just became a mommy again. And she's very happy. So welcome, Snorderk, to the Durk family that we that we apparently care for. He also asked that you guys post some oinks in the chat for Snorderk. And he gave me an extremely elaborate explanation of precisely which ones he wanted, and I couldn't make out exactly what he was saying. He wanted the ones with a little tiny hole that are really small. They're like this big. They're like really small, kind of like this. And those are the ones that are his favorite. So your guess is as good as mine. Maybe he means the snout ones as opposed to the others. I'm not sure. I don't. Honestly, it's kind of funny to think about a 4.5-year-old who knows what emojis are and like has particular like when I was 4.5, when I was 14.5, I didn't know what an emoji was. I barely knew what it was when I was 24.5. But your marching orders have been delivered. You guys must post oinks in the chat for Snorderk per the instructions of young Master Eastwood. Got a member chat from Screwed Up Jefferson Davis. I've noticed that the name is changing very often, and I like it. Once known as Screwed Up Rebellion, Screwed Up Texas something or other, Screwed Up Jefferson Davis has been a member for 7 days and says Mom Durk lays eggplants. Oh no. While I'm talking about my son's imaginary kids, I'm gonna keep it clean and family friendly. I'm not going to tell you where my mind went. Okay, so there you go. You guys got the Snorderk update. Let's get it started here today. Quick reminder, little housekeeping, kingpill.com. That's the place to go if you really want to support the show and you want to join the elite members of the King Pill Discord community. Kingpill.com is the place to sign up for that. And there's also links in the description. I very much appreciate all your guys' support. We're running things tight here as we navigate through kind of a transitional period in our life, and I'm dedicating a lot of time and energy to this whole project. So anything you guys can chip in to support is very much appreciated. There's a Cash App and a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description, and then you can join the King Pill Discord. You can leave a super chat. Or you can subscribe, be a paid subscriber on Substack. The King Pill Substack is where I post all the links to the show after I do it. I guess for those of you who maybe are new to the ASTROLABE, don't know exactly what's going on here, this is just a daily show that I do, going through all the stories and stuff that have interested me in the podcasts and tweets that I have encountered. Twitter is where everything is happening these days, and then it gradually trickles down everywhere else. So if you're listening to this show, you're getting the early view. I have cultivated the best algorithm, and now I broadcast my algorithm to everyone else. Now, unfortunately, there is a malfunction in my algorithm at the moment. I expect it to be transitory, but it is my slop procurement facility is down at the moment. So I am in a short supply of slop. However, I did pull this up. This is an account that I started following recently that just humors me to the greatest degree. Fat fella season. There's a meme coin here called Fat. This is the fat fella season, and they drop these videos every so often. And this one is particularly appropriate because later on here toward the end of the show, we're going to talk about this new, genuinely stunning discovery that was made at the Giza Plateau. But you guys will see that there's a tie-in here. So I decided that this would fill in for our slop for the day.
Cleopatra was a snow bunny? Oh yeah, we definitely in the right timeline. These History Channel niggas really said aliens built the pyramids? Nah, nigga, we know that's cap. The fat niggas went back in time and guess what? We was running this bitch. While the skinny boys stack bricks in the hot sun, the big body pharaohs chill in their gold palaces and stack offerings.
Keep stacking them bricks, skinny boy.
Got them boys some soul food and melanin to help them level up their broke asses. Meanwhile, the big boys are developing the first ever fat nigga coin liquidity pool. And them hieroglyphs, yeah, them ain't no bird symbols.
Oh my god, that's my pharaoh.
Damn right, bitch. That's a fat nigga carved into these walls. And who's at the top?
It's you, Pharaoh. You're my favorite big boy.
That's right. King Fatsef III and his royal snow bunny, Cleopatra.
My temple craves your blessing, Pharaoh.
Best believe the fat nigga's been getting this bag for 5,000 years. We ran this shit before and we running it again. What timeline should we pull up to next? Drop a comment. Hey yo, shut the fuck up. It's fat nigga season.
It's fat nigga season. These guys are great. It's just oh, I didn't even see this. Joe Rogan and Bert Kreischer talking about it. Let's see what they say.
There's this page I'm really obsessed with. It's fat N-word season.
Oh, come on, you coward!
Joe, it's so addictive because it's all AI, and I think they're promoting a crypto coin.
Of course.
And
oh, what else did they got up here? Let me see if I can find the one that I tried doing a quick search, but I didn't want to start any later than I already was. Let me see if I can find this other one that I was one of the first ones that I saw that had me just rolling. I don't know. I very highly doubt that this is actually black guys doing this, but I am somewhat adjacent to the whole Hotep community, and this definitely seems like something some of them, they would either be totally into it or not into it whatsoever, and like it would piss them off. Here you go. I think this is the very first one that I saw.
All right, this is another day in the life of a fat nigga crypto millionaire. He wakes up to his white bitch serving him 2 black coffees. He loves his submissive Russian snow bunny. She knows when to shut the fuck up, and he can watch white people's shows with her like Severance. All right, now it's time to lock in. He trades meme coins with his fat nigga Alpha Group. They scan for that daily runner. They found 100x. Let's fucking go. After trading, the niggas get together for breakfast. They discuss future business plans. Always plotting, building. The niggas decide they deserve a little vacation. A spontaneous trip to Vegas with the Snow Bunnies. They arrive at the Aria Hotel and are given the penthouse suite. Fully comped, of course. Yeah, these niggas are high rollers. Gambling in the private rooms. $1 million per hand. Yeah, these niggas know how to count cars. They cash out 18 million. They getting hungry, so they celebrate with some fine dining. After a lavish meal, it's time to hit the club and get turned. Yeah, these niggas really be living that rich nigga lifestyle. Drop a comment what you want to see the fat niggas do next. Hey, yo, shut the fuck up. It's fat nigga season.
It's fat nigga season.
You guys are cracking me up. Rethuglican, $5. He says, my route got canceled due to the blizzard tonight, not getting paid, but bright side is I'm not dodging Africans. Downside is I had to watch this. You weren't dodging Africans, so you logged on to the Astrolabe and got inundated with Africans. Oh, man. Bryce is upset. Honestly, I'm going to be even madder if it's black guys doing this. The only thing that makes me mad about this whole project is that I didn't think of it first. This sort of thing is actually the video and the audio is genuinely very, very easy to do. I mean, you get it still takes a little bit of time, especially the video. Getting the video to be exactly what you want takes a little bit of time. The audio, they could produce the audio clip for this in whatever time it takes them to write the script, plus about 1 minute. It will sound exactly like this. You can't basically can't tell that it's AI. Ask me how I know. Okay, so I guess we did have some slop today. That was fun. Go. Whoops, listening to him again. Go celebrate Fat Nigga Season and follow them on at Fat Fella Season on Twitter. This is an interesting little poll that was conducted by NBC News. Yeah, Colin Ross says similar to Nigga Chain, which I own some just because it's so damn funny, right? Nigga Chain. How can you not own some Nigga Chain? So check this out. Voters' opinions of, this is 1,000 registered voters nationally. NBC News, margin of error, plus or minus 3.1 percentage points. Conducted March 7th to 11th. So this is white men and white women with degree or no degree. And the most popular among white men, very obviously, is Donald Trump. But J.D. Vance, very, very closely behind. So white men, no degree. So this is the Chud metric right here. White men, no degree. The most bullish Donald Trump supporters, with Vance and Musk and Doge very closely behind, and the Republican Party very much in the green overall. Not really big fans of Zelensky. We need to work on these numbers here. These aren't great. DEI and Democratic Party have completely cratered, absolutely tanked. No surprise there. Look at the difference between white men with no degree and white men in college. Minus 40 move for Trump. It's actually there's a smaller gap between white men no degree and white men college plus on J.D. Vance, but they're overall net negative on Vance. And then they're more net negative on Musk. And then down on Republicans overall, plus 11 on Zelensky. And yet still, they're very negative overall on the Democratic Party. So they're negative on Republicans, but they're much more negative toward Democrats, like significantly so. 27 points worth. And then notice this here. White women, no degree versus white men with college. Look at the numbers for Vance and Trump. So white women, no degree, plus 14 on Trump, compared to white men with a degree are only plus 1. You can see the source of all of the issues. So for those who want to reduce it to just women, This is what it would be if it was women without college. The women without college, the country would be overwhelmingly red. Overwhelmingly red. In fact, white women without a degree are less cucked than white men with a degree. +9 on the Republican Party. They're negative on Zelensky, negative on DEI slightly. Interesting that there's it's much more even there. And then overall, almost as negative toward the Democrats as white men with a degree. But then, where everything goes completely off the rails, white women plus college. Look at this. White women with degrees are more into Zelensky than white men with no degrees are into Trump. By 12 points, a large margin. And yet, white women with a degree are net negative on the Democrats. This is how frickin' bad a shape the Democrats are in. Even white women with a degree are net negative on them. It is interesting that that Elon and Doge are more unpopular than Trump and Vance, even though this is within the margin of error pretty far. So this is basically all the same number. Very interesting numbers. Now, this is the sort of rhetoric here that I really like to see, though I'm questioning just how representative this is of the administration. It's not completely clear to me what Bannon and the administration, what sort of status they have with one another right now. But this is the sort of rhetoric that I want to hear more of.
You are second on the list after the VP as people getting the nod at CPAC to be president. A lot of people were surprised by this. My first question, you have anything to do with putting your name in that list because you have presidential ambitions?
No. And President Trump, I'm a firm believer that President Trump will run and win again in 2028. So I've already endorsed President Trump. A man like this comes along once every century if we're lucky. We've got him now. He's on fire, and I'm a huge supporter. Want to see him again in 2028.
And obviously, anybody who doesn't like what you say but judges it as a function of a lack of intelligence doesn't know anything about you. I don't make that mistake. You're a smart guy. You know he's term limited. How do you think he gets another term?
We're working on it. I think we'll have a couple of alternatives. Let's say that. We'll see. We'll see what the definition. We'll see what the definition of term limit is.
All right. Well, so you're talking about litigating this issue because I don't want people to listen to our interview and say Bannon's cooking up an insurrection. Bannon is cooking up. You know what I mean? I want people to get a straight take on where your head is. What are you suggesting?
Chris, as you know, I've had greater long shots than this. When we supported President Trump after the election, I realize you don't believe the election in 2020 was stolen. We do. We fervently believe that. When President Trump went back to Mar-a-Lago on January 20th, 2021, he was the longest of long shots to return to the White House. We said that day in our podcast and doubled down, having President Trump's back, that he was coming back not just to win the primary, he would win the White House, and we had to get organized and drive that victory and also start working on all the policies. What's called Project 2025 or the America First Policy Institute, but all those different think tanks that started putting in the policies that you're seeing today in what we call Flood the Zone or Days of Thunder or however you want to describe it. But it's many years in the making. So we've had greater long shots than Trump 2028, and we've got a lot of stuff we're working on there. We're not prepared to talk about it publicly, but in a couple of months, I think we will be.
But you are not suggesting revolution or overthrow or anything that people would condemn.
Chris, we just won one of the biggest sweeping victories. We're in the middle of a 1932 type realignment if we can continue on and continue to have populist policies, populist nationalist policies. We have African American men coming to our side. We have Hispanics coming to our side. So no, we're huge believers in democracy because we know how to get votes out. We know how to get low propensity, low information voters out to support the president's policies. The anti-democratic forces, I think you're seeing them today in the courts. I mean, they're trying to obstruct a sitting president of the United States from fulfilling his executive mandate. So no, we're the big believers in democracy, and we show it because we won this unbelievable come from behind, not just in 16, as you know, but in 2024 when virtually everybody ruled Trump out.
You know, when the people are on my side, I'm a really big fan of democracy, unironically. I suspect that what he's talking about here is, and again, he says we're working on it, and right now, I'm not completely sure. I've seen some things that have made me question just how close the Bannon sphere is to, let's say, the core of the administration. The way that he has been publicly spatting with Elon, it's tough to tell how much of it is kayfabe and how much of it is like a legitimate, sour grapes. Elon's on the inside, Bannon's on the outside, and Bannon very much represents the populist side of the aisle here within this coalition, whereas Elon is more of the tech optimist side, to use the breakdown that we were talking about the other day. So with those qualifications, where I don't know how much this is Bannon. I still think it's a big deal if Bannon is talking about it this way, because these are the ways. This is the way that this sort of thing gets cooking, is having little power centers like the Bannonites cranking away on something like this. Whether Bannon and Trump personally are close or not, there are many loyal Bannonites who are part of the administration, people who have a lot of affection for Bannon, like, for example, Kash Patel, the head of the FBI. So what I suspect the angle on this is going to be, because we've heard a few little drips like this from Trump himself, has sort of joked about this kind of in the way he does, where he's saying it that he knows it's going to rile people up, but he's not committing himself to anything, but he's just kind of like, we'll see. I wonder what connection this has to the auto pen scandal, and just the investigation of the voter fraud and everything. If they can really hammer that and really get some major wins on that front that they can champion, then they could make some sort of legal case that he has that he was deprived. There was an ineligible president here, and he was robbed of this term. I don't know if I don't know how they'd take that to making him eligible for another term, but I have no doubt that there are people within the administration who want to make something like this happen, and Bannon would be speaking for those people. Now, what would a third or say a fourth term look like? I think I saw someone in here mentioned his age. And here's the thing, is number one, he's not your average 80-year-old. Even 4 years from now, he's still, unless he really tanks off hard, he's still going to be as boisterous and energetic and competent and sharp as a man 20 years younger than him. So if there was going to be someone who's that old, who's serving that role, then he would be the one that would be qualified. But the role that he would be continuing to play, he would be moving to more of a figurehead. He would still obviously have power, have the executive power, but at that point it would be about continuing the administration that he's set up. He's got this really powerful cabinet. He's got all of these competent verticals that are all operating now, and you just get like continuity of executive power at the top. So he wouldn't necessarily, by that point, 4 years is a long time. 4 years from now is a long time. So he would be perfectly. It's basically just like keeping everything running exactly as it is. Now, there's also the possibility that Vance runs and Trump's his vice president. I don't know what the point of that would be, though, really. But I think it would be funny to start calling Vance 49. Instead of calling him 48, call him 49, because Trump is going to be Trump's going to be 48. So it almost feels like bullying at this point to highlight the Democrats desperately trying to maintain relevance and trying to do their thing. It's a dying animal, so it's kind of like watching a dying animal writhing around. At some point, you start feeling a little guilty. But they're sending Tim Walz out because apparently they think that the problem was that people didn't get enough Tim Walz. And the man cannot help but just stack gaff upon gaff upon gaff. The latest one is this.
Saying on my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping. So, and if you own one, we're not blaming you. You can take dental floss and pull the Tesla thing off, and take out, just telling you. Saying on my.
So you have the governor of Minnesota talking about how he's exulting in the fact that the most American car manufacturer. Yes, Tesla is the most American car manufacturer by production, the components, everything is built and manufactured and designed in the United States. All of their it is the most American vehicle. I was actually looking at this just recently because I'm going to be in the market for a car in the near future, and I was thinking, okay, so if we're going to get this, like if I want to try to skate to where the puck is going, I don't want to go get something that's heavily dependent on overseas trade. I want something domestic. So what are the most domestically manufactured cars? And Tesla is easily the most. So we have an American governor shitting on and hoping for the destruction of the most American manufactured automobiles. And I didn't go look and see how many jobs, how many Americans are employed by Tesla, but he's basically actively hoping for the unemployment of Americans. But it gets even better than that. This is from Bill Malugin. As Governor Walz gloats about Tesla stock dropping, records from the Minnesota State Board of Investment show that as of 6/30/2024, the state of Minnesota had 1.6 million shares of Tesla in its retirement fund and 211,000 shares of Tesla in its non-retirement fund. The Minnesota Retirement Fund and non-retirement fund are heavily invested in Tesla as the governor of the state actively tries to root on the destruction of that company. So he is actively campaigning against his state's own funds. It is honestly, I'm starting to get concerned about a world in which our enemies are too weak and pathetic. Like, you want to have good enemies. You don't want to have bad enemies. It's not good for you to have bad enemies. You want to have competent, effective enemies. It keeps you sharp, keeps you on your toes. But all of our enemies are gay and retarded. The competency crisis is most distinctly distilled among our enemies. We need better enemies. I am in the market for better enemies. Who wants to sign up? We're taking submissions. Speaking of enemies, I regret having to put Noah Smith on my screen here, but it's just a way to get to this article. He says, why is Elon Musk the one and only person who has been able to scale manufacturing businesses in the U.S.? One reason is that he focuses on designing factories, not just designing products. FAS, factories as a service. This is from Zero Hedge. I've actually got a number of things from Zero Hedge we're going to read through today. The Musk-led manufacturing revolution nobody is talking about. When most analysts discuss Tesla, they focus on new vehicles or the electric vehicle company's advancements in autonomy. Yet, according to Launch.io CEO Jeff Lutz, one of the most significant and under-discussed developments at Tesla is happening not in its design studios or on the road, but in its factories. Lutz, a former executive at Google and Motorola, argues that Tesla's true innovation isn't just the electric vehicles or robots it's building, but how those products are being made. The company's first principles approach to manufacturing is a radical departure from the industry norm, focusing not just on cheap labor or existing models, but on rethinking the entire production process. Tesla is creating factories that are the product, designing, testing, and perfecting every element just as they do with their cars. This focus on manufacturing efficiency, Lutz believes, will lead to a dramatic reduction in production costs, potentially bringing them closer to zero. And this shift in how products are built, rather than merely assembled, could set a new standard for the entire manufacturing world. This is from an interview with Farzad Mizbahi talking to Jeff Lutz. So Farzad says, "It's no wonder that innovation has been lacking so much. It's because we've brute forced essentially manufacturing by leveraging globalization, because we had that $2 an hour rate in China or Mexico. Wherever else, like, we're not like, well, we have to just get really good at building stuff to be competitive." I was like, no, just let him do it. Like, we'll get our margins, just let them do it. Sorry, this is a transcription from a conversation, and it's a very direct transcription. Jeff Lutz replies, "The most underdiscussed thing in the analyst world about Tesla is not the new vehicles coming, nor the growing discussions about autonomy, but rather Tesla's next product, their new way of manufacturing. It's a big deal, a huge step in how products are made today, and I don't think many investment firms have the right research people actually looking into what this impact is and what it's going to enable. It's going to enable the variable cost to build products to shrink further and further, approaching zero. This is the step function needed for cost reduction to achieve further scale, and I don't think enough people are talking about it. It's going to be how the Cybertruck is made, how Optimus will be made." Optimus is the robot. "Tesla versions its factories like they version their product. They spend time perfecting it and have design reviews of their factory designs just as they do with their products. They have specs and performance attributes they're trying to meet. This is very different from what happens at other companies at the executive level." Farzad says, "This is such a profound statement because a lot of the stories that I hear are related to, say, Tesla capitalizing on making manufacturing the product. Really just honing in so much on the factory that it becomes the product. Where we throw around 2 million cars per year, 5 million cars per year per factory, tens of millions of bots per year, sooner than people think. The usual narrative is crazy pie in the sky. They can't do that. Look at Ford, look at BYD. They can only do so much. But what we're missing here is that we've had decades of just sitting on our asses, leveraging cheaper labor, versus going out of our way to really push the boundaries of engineering and manufacturing. And now that we have a company that's willing to do that because the leader is viewing that as a first principles approach to manufacturing, instead of like, okay, cheap labor is good, but why aren't we pushing manufacturing and engineering as much as we can to make this as efficient and as productive as possible? Of course, they're extremely talented. They're going to do something very unique, but it's also on the backs of 30 to 40 years of, I'm going to call it laziness. You're just taking the easy way out. And I get it, more profits, you're taking care of shareholders. I get it, but you're not really pushing the boundaries of manufacturing. I think what this leads to is, if companies and leaders truly take this to heart, we're going to see an explosion in manufacturing across the board. It's not just going to be a Tesla thing. I think we're going to see it all over the place. And Lutz says, "I'm advising companies on this now. You're going to see massive localization of manufacturing. Massive localization of manufacturing. Driving down energy costs is going to be a huge factor in reducing cost of living. But then the localization of manufacturing, this is what I've been talking about. We're going to have local areas where you have a return to the world of the local firm that supplies some sort of niche product for the town, where they have a personal relationship with everyone who lives there. Think of the old like blacksmith or the button manufacturer. Like each little town would have had a button manufacturer where you go to get your buttons, and it's some little family business that, or some guy who's his whole life, his deepest autism investments has been in studying the history and design and manufacture of buttons. And he just goes into his little shop and cranks out buttons every day. And people bring their buttons in, bring their shirts in to get the buttons sewn back on them or whatever. It's just his trade. That's his entire life. And his son is born, and as his son grows up, his son goes to the button factory and works there with his dad, making buttons. We're going to see a return to this. There's no reason why it should have taken this long. I mean, there's plenty of reasons, but you know what I mean. This is going to be part of the new American Renaissance. Once you take that mentality, that localized manufacturing mentality, and you start incorporating AI tools and robotics, plus really cheap energy, and a renewed incentive structure for manufacturing domestically, making it easier and more profitable to do things domestically, as people begin leaning into that, we're going to see an explosion in productivity and wealth in this country that the world has never seen. The problems, the greatest problems of our future are not going to be the problems that we've become accustomed to over the past couple generations. The problems of malaise and suffocation and the long housing. We're not going to have those. Those are not going to be the problems of our future. The problems of our future are going to be the problems of chaos and excess, and we're going to have explosive problems, not suffocation problems. It's going to be like the problems of sudden rapid changes and then the problems that are attendant upon a wealthy, growing population, not an aging, suffering, collapsing population. And I don't think a lot of people have wrapped their minds around that just yet. But you're going to look around within the next couple of years. You're going to look around all of a sudden and be like, "Oh man, we live in a completely different world." All those things, that mindset that plagued me back then, it's completely gone, and I've got a whole different set of problems ahead of me that I'm facing now, and none of them resemble that old world of stifling, long-housed, tiptoeing through the tulips, hiding what I think. Like all of those things, those days are going to be gone. Yeah, growth spurt aches. Yeah, we're gonna be having growing pains, not dying pains. And today's edition of Patronage, Elon Musk, per the New York Times, is making the maximum allowable donation to GOP members of Congress who back impeaching activist judges. Now he kind of stuck his foot in his mouth this afternoon and said something about how he said we need the Senate to act on impeaching these judges, and we need to get 60 senators who will align themselves with that. That's not how the impeachment process works. The House impeaches, has to start in the House. The House impeaches on a simple majority line, and then the Senate convicts upon that impeachment, and that has to be a supermajority. So they'd need 67. So actually impeaching some of these judges right now, before the midterms, is a non-starter. They can have the impeachment proceedings, and they can use that to put political pressure on them, but actually getting an impeachment through is never ever going to actually happen. I mean, the House could impeach them, but they're not going to be convicted in the Senate. Now, after the midterms, maybe another story, depending on how things go. But we've got the richest man in the world, quote unquote, richest man in the world on paper, who is continuing to put his money where his mouth is. So I talked about this judge yesterday, the woman who ordered the U.S. military to continue enlisting mentally delusional transgender troops. I didn't catch this yesterday. I saw it shortly afterward. Shout out to Chuck Durk for tweeting about this. She's justifying her ruling by quoting the musical Hamilton. He says, "We either have a presidency or we have a rule by 677 gavel-wielding dictators. The Supreme Court must put these judges in place." This is what she wrote. "The court's opinion is long, but its premise is simple. In the self-evident truth that, quote, all people are created equal, end quote, with a footnote, all means all, nothing more and certainly nothing less. So the footnote for this quote that all people are created equal, let's see what it says. Women were, quote, included in the sequel, end quote, when passage of the 19th Amendment granted them the right to vote in 1920. See Lin-Manuel Miranda, Hamilton, An American Musical, 2016. What in the hell? You couldn't write this like if somebody wrote this into a script, it would be improbable. Like a district court judge cites Hamilton and providing the legal justification for why the Secretary of Defense cannot purge transgender troops from the ranks. And the woman is also gay. It's just like completely torching their credibility. Cannot be taken seriously. Sean Davis says, oh, okay, before I get to that, I have to, Michael Schellenberger. I like Michael Schellenberger. He's done a lot of really good stuff. He is spazzing out about this whole thing and it's not a good look, man. He's quoting from here's our Giga Jew, the 10-minute clip we played the other day. He says, every single Trump advisor, including and especially Stephen Miller, knows perfectly well what they did is unconstitutional. It's up to the courts, not the administration, to determine whether it's non-justiciable. The administration must comply with the order until a higher court reverses it or sets it aside. That's how our system works. If the Trump administration continues with these obviously unconstitutional actions, then it will lose the legitimacy, public support, and power it needs to pursue free speech diplomacy, which would be a very disappointing outcome. He tags Marco Rubio. And then he calls Stephen Miller's answer Kamala-level word salad and whataboutism. He knows better, which means he's gaslighting. He's very unhappy about this. Sean Davis replies, the Supreme Court explicitly ruled in the 1948 Ludicky versus Watkins case that Alien Enemy Act removals by the president are non-justiciable. Here are some key excerpts from that ruling, lest anyone think the SCOTUS opinion was in any way unclear. Quote, the Alien Enemy Act precludes judicial review of the removal order. End quote. That line is literally the first sentence of the SCOTUS holding. So no, Michael Schellenberger, this is not the what did he say? He said, it's up to the courts, not the administration, to determine whether it's non-justiciable. The administration is referring to something that came directly out of the mouths of the Supreme Court. Quote, the very nature of the president's power to order the removal of all enemy aliens rejects the notion that courts may pass judgment upon the exercise of his discretion. So, the very fact that the president has the power to order the removal of all enemy aliens, that very fact itself rejects the notion that courts can pass judgment upon the exercise of his discretion. Another quote, every judge before whom the question has since come has held that the statute barred judicial review. Quote, a war power of the president not subject to judicial review is not transmuted into a judicially reviewable action because the president chooses to have that power exercised within narrower limits than Congress authorized. These are matters of political judgment for which judges have neither technical competence nor official responsibility. The act is almost as old as the Constitution, and it would savor of doctrinaire audacity now to find the statute offensive to some emanation of the Bill of Rights. What a line. It would savor of doctrinaire audacity now to find the statute offensive to some emanation of the Bill of Rights. Accordingly, we hold that full responsibility for the just exercise of this great power may validly be left where the Congress has constitutionally placed it, on the President of the United States. The founders, in their wisdom, made him not only the commander-in-chief, but also the guiding organ in the conduct of our foreign affairs. This is the Supreme Court writing this. Sean Davis says, there is no gray area or uncertainty here. As the Supreme Court has made abundantly and explicitly clear, removals under the Alien Removal Act are non-justiciable. That's such a hard word to say. Non-justiciable. Because of this, it is the inferior and unelected district judge who is violating the law and the Constitution today by purporting to have the authority to review what the Supreme Court, his superior, has prohibited him from reviewing. The proper form for this case to take, based on the Constitution, federal statutes, and 250 years of case law in this country, is for the judge to dismiss the plaintiff's case for lack of jurisdiction and standing. Plaintiffs can, of course, appeal that dismissal, at which point the appellate court would be required to reject the appeal. And if plaintiffs wish to do so at that point, they could apply for a writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court, which would then decide whether it wished to overturn its own precedents. That's the process. District court judge must dismiss the case for lack of jurisdiction and standing. Anything else is illegal. Once they do that, the plaintiffs can appeal that dismissal, and then the appellate court must reject that appeal. Anything else is illegal. And after all that's done, then the plaintiffs could go apply for a writ of cert to the Supreme Court, and then it would be up to the Supreme Court to decide if they want to overturn that incredibly detailed, explicit precedent of theirs. And even if that were to happen, the president still retains inherent Article 2 authority, independent of federal statute, to remove foreign enemies from the United States. What this means is that even if the Supreme Court decided to overturn its own precedents on this basis, the president still retains the authority to go full Andrew Jackson. And that's the point at which he goes full Andrew Jackson. All of the guys who were begging for him to do it now, this is not the time to do that. There's no reason to pull that out now. That actually lessens the possibility that it's actually successful. Continuing the tweet, that is how the legal system in this country actually works. It does not in any way empower an inferior trial court judge to unilaterally overturn controlling federal law or Supreme Court precedents. And then Margot Cleveland, who's a very good follow on this stuff, she's going through regularly, the senior legal correspondent of Federalist. She goes through regularly breaking down each of these cases, and she's got a lot of experience, so she weighs in on the some of the legal nuance to these different cases. She's a very good follower at Prof. MJ Cleveland on Twitter. She responds to Schellenberger. She says, this post by Schellenberger provides an opportunity for me to hit a point I've been making the last week, but which many are still missing. For 2 months, Trump administration has faced an avalanche of unconstitutional court orders from single federal judges. More TROs and PI, this is a temporary restraining order and a preliminary injunction, have issued against Trump administration in 2 months than in 4 years of Biden. And while appeals process is still ongoing for many of those, appellate courts have already stayed several orders, showing my point regarding unconstitutionality is not spin, but reality. In other words, you have the district courts who are issuing temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions, and then appellate courts are coming along and saying, no, they're staying those, saying you can't do that, which is reinforcing what she's saying. She's saying these are unconstitutional. And it's not just her opinion on it. The appellate courts are actually on her side on this. Supreme Court stayed one judge ordering payment of $2 billion in 36 hours and told the judge to be more specific. 3 appellate judges said Trump likely to prevail on firing of special counsel Dellinger and ruled he remain out and not reinstated. So the Supreme Court and the appellate judges are already not necessarily just siding with the lower courts. Another appellate court stayed an order of one judge undoing Trump's DEI policies. Another judge reversed his TRO and refused to grant an injunction on putting USAID workers on leave. Many other injunctions will be overturned on appeal because lower courts lack jurisdiction to decide employment and grants or army policy. Breadth of overreach by lower court, one judge, district court injunctions interfering with Trump's Article 2 power cannot be overstated. Yet not once did the Trump administration declare, fine, then enforce your order. For every MAGA person screaming, ignore those illegal orders, the Trump administration has not done that. And we are talking about clearly illegal orders that infringe on his executive power. Instead, every time Trump has worked to find a way to read the order so that he could comply and not pit Article 2 against Article 3. He did that in grant cases by reading exceptions the court allowed for otherwise terminating funding. And he did that in the Alien Enemies Act case too. In other words, they're working overtime. Good night, Kate. Thanks for dropping in. They're working overtime to ensure that they can take a course of action that complies with the letter of the law. So they're not going rogue. They're not doing anything crazy. They're staying completely within the boundaries of existing law and existing precedent and using it to their advantage. She says, yes, the Trump administration did not turn the planes around, but that isn't saying you can't order me to do that, but you didn't order me to do that because only the minute order is binding and it cites case law to support this point. In other words, when the judge said, with it pursuant to the Alien Enemies Act proclamation, when he said, anybody who's subject to this, who's on a plane, they need to come back now. And the administration said, okay, this particular plane here was outside American territory. So it doesn't those people don't count under the delineation that you've made. You've said all of the people who are covered or targeted by this proclamation, which is alien enemies present within the United States, you must not do anything with them. And they said, okay, well, on this plane, based upon the time when you issued that order, these planes here were not full of alien enemies within the territory of the United States. They're out over international waters, or they were in another country. So they're not. We didn't disobey your order. Those people at the time you issued the order simply were not covered by it. And once the planes left U.S. territory, Trump said the order didn't apply because the removal took place. Throughout the entire drilling by the judge, and even the judge's request for the Trump's team to say, we just disagree, Trump didn't say that. Because what they're trying to do, this is the thing, what they are trying to do is they're trying to bait Trump into telling the judiciary to go fuck itself. That's what they want to happen. So when you're spurting out on the internet demanding that the administration just give the judges the finger and do whatever they want, you are playing, as Tom Luongo would say, you are a mouthpiece of Davos. You are spreading British propaganda. You're trying to get the administration to do exactly what its enemies are trying to get it to do. As Witt said, this makes them look like the adults in the room, and that matters. You can see this thread from Schellenberger is a great example of this, because Schellenberger is overwhelmingly a friend. He's very much within the MAGA orbit. Generally very, very good. And yet his brain has broken on this issue, which is like a bellwether for popular sentiment. In order for the administration to be able to tell a court or tell a judge, that's nice, let's see you enforce that, they are going to need the overwhelming support of the population. It's going to need to be overwhelmingly abundantly evident that this is the only alternative. We've exhausted every option. This is the only thing left for us to do, is to assert Article 2 powers and say, that's nice, we're going to do what we're going to do anyways. Come stop us. For something like that to actually succeed, they have to have the documented track record of having complied all along the way, gone through the system, navigated the system exactly like this all the way through. And only then can they tell them to go fuck themselves. She says, the Trump administration said, we complied in good faith, and here's why. Yes, the here's why is a very narrow reading of the order and only the minute order, but it has case law to back that. Trump is not being pedantic, he's being prudent. What this also indicates is that he has got some real hitters on his legal team. The Department of Justice, the actual functional leadership of the DOJ right now, are incredibly sophisticated legal minds. You can tell by the approaches that they're taking here. They have like carved a perfect little path through all of this case law where they can apply very narrow readings that are technically accurate. You have to read it very narrowly, but when you read it very narrowly, take things very, very literally, they are complying to the letter of the law all the way along. So there is nothing that they can be caught on. She says, while Article 3 is going out of its way to trounce on Article 2, Trump is going out of his way to show comedy. It's comity, not comedy, but comity to Article 3, even when judges don't deserve it. Judges are not just looking for a fight, but have hit Trump with several sucker punches. So it's not just that it's not simply they're looking for a fight, but they're going above and beyond and actually hitting him with sucker punches. And this is the magnanimous executive. The executive that can get away with asserting absolute executive power is the magnanimous executive. To be the magnanimous executive, you need to have a documented track record of having taken a whole bunch of sucker punches and responding with magnanimity and grace. Once you have a documented character of that, you can now begin to borrow against that. This is how political capital works. By tediously going through the entire process and allowing the judges to waylay all of this and going through all the inanity of it all, the administration is earning political capital. This is the eating your vegetables part of power politics. Nobody has the temperament for this. Everyone just wants to see fireworks. They want to see someone big dicking someone else. And I understand the sentiment. But sometimes you just need to save. You don't go out and buy the new boat or buy a house or build a new back deck or whatever. Sometimes you just need to save your money. And it's not fun. It's kind of boring. It requires low time preference. But all you guys out there who want to pride yourself in how rational and low time preference and masculine you are, you can't then get all impatient and grumpy because the administration isn't just lashing out and trying to big dig people the way you want them to. They're eating their vegetables right now. They're adding to the political capital savings account so they can ultimately borrow against it. Phil Gibson says, you think the guy who's been in lawfare all his life would know not to self-incriminate his administration? Yes, exactly. He knows what he's doing. K.R. Harris says, Congress could legally abolish every federal court except SCOTUS. All these district courts are allowed, not required. That's true. That is true. It's not going to happen, but it's true. Give it 4 to 8 years. Maybe we circle back around again. So she says judges are not just looking for a fight, but have hit Trump with several sucker punches. Yet Trump is refusing to engage. This cannot continue for much longer, however, as lower courts are framing injunctions more and more wildly, leaving Trump administration little room to maneuver in a way he can comply without sacrificing his executive authority. So they're cornering him. They're backing him. They're issuing these injunctions more and more absurdly. And the time is coming where eventually he's not going to have a way to strictly comply anymore, even with like a narrow reading. He's going to have to, there's going to be a point where he has to assert that executive authority in direct contravention to the court. And the time to spend that capital is not when you're dealing with a district court judge. Do not give them, every one of you guys who are mad that the administration won't just tell them to go fuck themselves, you really want them to pull out the big guns for some measly little district court judge somewhere? They don't deserve that. Do you know how? Imagine the little tingle that would go up the spine of that judge when it happened. Immediately, that gremlin would be like, I have etched my name in the book of history. Everyone will remember me now. My mission has been accomplished. Look at what a hero I am. You really want to give them that? No, the answer here is, I'm going above you. Let me talk to your manager, you peon. She says, which is why I said in the earlier cases before SCOTUS, their attempt at prudence was imprudent. By letting it play out in lower courts and not putting a halt to judges' clearly illegal orders, judges have been emboldened. So for SCOTUS, she's saying, for SCOTUS, they're trying to be prudent, but it's actually imprudent for them to do this. Because by allowing this whole thing to play out, by not reining their lower court judges in, they're emboldening those judges to do more and more things that are discrediting to the judiciary, and put SCOTUS, increases the possibility that SCOTUS is going to get put under the microscope. Appellate courts and SCOTUS must step in now and forcefully, because the problem is one of the judiciary's making, not Trump's. And Trump should be applauded for the lengths he has gone to not create a constitutional crisis by crafting plausible basis by which he obeyed illegal orders. This is a good point from Nacho Cat. The Trump administration is essentially faced with a judicial DDoS attack. Go follow Margot Cleveland. She's great. And it wouldn't be an episode of the ASTROLABE if we didn't get a great thread from a great poster, Vagrant of Rhodes, at Vagrant Wires on Twitter. Go follow him. It says, quick thread. These lone judges are likely the only remaining effective lever of power that the old regime still fully commands from inside the house of the government at this point. They've blown through the credibility of all their other institutional tools already. Over the last few years since COVID, government, law enforcement, media, entertainment, academia, science, economics, etc. Everyone is wise to those tactics, and they will wise up to this one as well, but it buys the old regime time to prepare more kinetic options. As the credibility of these other institutions have been drained to keep leftist power afloat, judges are the emergency fire axe that they've been saving for a rainy day to buy them time. The fact that they have to do this so early means they are truly in a desperate state. This is the really important point here. The fact that they're having to bust out the emergency fire axe is evidence of just how desperate of a situation they're in. Once you see them, I know Luongo has talked about in geopolitical terms, geopolitical, economic, and financial terms, that like if you're going to go after these offshore banking cabal, European leadership class creatures, one of the first things that you have to do is force them to start spending their own capital, because their entire power base is built off of borrowing money against other people's capital, using other people's money to fund all of their schemes. And so the first thing you have to do is you have to turn off the other people's money spigot for them and force them to start using their own assets, start spending down their own capital. That's what's starting to happen with them. That's also happening, that's on the macro scale. On the micro scale, within the domestic regime here, the old regime, they're having to actually spend their capital, and they're not adding any. Everyone looks at all this capital being spent, and oh, look at all these bad things, all the stuff they're doing, it's all bad, But what you're missing, like, yeah, it's bad that they're firebombing Teslas and whatever, but this is them spending their actual capital. They're not doing the other people's money game anymore. They're now spending their own money, both literally and metaphorically. If SCOTUS can't muster up the courage to step in and put these rogue judges in their place, according to the constitutional order, which clearly demands it, very unlikely they will, considering Roberts is a snake and a coward, then Trump ignoring the judges is inevitable. This will serve as a sort of proverbial nail in the coffin for these techniques of subterfuge from inside the system, and the left will shift fully over to kinetic means of disruption from outside the system, which we are already seeing a preview of with attacks on Teslas. Trump will not cow to these insane rulings at all, nor should he be given any pause by them. Run straight through this absurd farce, and it is a farce. Judges citing musicals, foreign-born judges, judges with financial ties to rulings, etc., all make a mockery of our system. What a shot. Stuff of history right there. This is by design. Just as the left used academia's credibility to launder things like DEI, or the credibility of science to launder COVIDian power grabs and jab profits, they're using the final shred of judicial credibility for their own purposes. In this case, buying time. These rogue judges, i.e. leftist activists and old regime card-carrying members who have been activated like MKUltra subjects, have tried to usurp power well beyond their constitutional purview for nefarious purposes, including protecting their own revenue streams. There has not been a single recusal in sight, and that tells you all you need to know about their intentions. They have given Trump no choice but to ignore them. Otherwise, the presidency is a dead office and the Constitution itself is null and void. This is the Rubicon. Trump must fully ignore these rulings, but he should also put these judges in jail or deport for their corruption, of which there are many to find through simple Google searches. But given this is their last-ditch internal effort, we should be ready for external tactics. When Trump fully crosses the Rubicon of this final remaining constitutional illusion, the left will go much more aggressively kinetic. Summer of Love 2.0 will likely hit us hard in a few months as a result. Be wary and do not cave to these insipid robe-wearing rubes. And he quotes Stephen Miller, our Giga-Jew. Stephen Miller says, currently district court judges have assumed the mantle of Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, Secretary of Homeland Security, and Commander-in-Chief. Each day, they change the foreign policy, economic, staffing, and national security policies of the administration. Each day, the nation arises to see what the craziest unelected local federal judge has decided the policies of the government of the United States shall be. It is madness. It is lunacy. It is pure lawlessness. It is the gravest assault on democracy. It must and will end. Look at all my mutuals in the replies. Whoa, says the will of the American people is to crush the judiciary. Cringewalker says, Mr. Miller, I trust your mastery of the law will win, but such a win has to be hardened so it can't happen again for generations. Fugitive Caesar says, the American people stand with you. Unseen One says, send in the IRS. Audit all of them and their families. Bring the pain. And Vagrant says, Miller has been spot on through all of this. He knows what's going on and what this means. We stand at a fork in the road. The judiciary either controls everything or is put back in its proper constitutional place. Sean Davis says, John Roberts didn't just go out of his way yesterday to trash Trump on a purely political matter, impeachment of corrupt judges, over which Roberts has no authority. He did it by selectively leaking his statement to left-wing corporate media outlets, lying about its nature, claiming it was only in response to press inquiries rather than a general statement, and then refusing to provide the full statement to conservative media outlets when requested, including The Federalist. To date, no one knows the full extent of what Roberts and his taxpayer-funded PR agents have said because no record of any statement from the court can be found anywhere on the Supreme Court website, a shocking breach of protocol and transparency. Did the left-wing corporate media outlets handpicked by Roberts to receive his political rant printed in full, or did they selectively quote it? It's impossible to know because the Chief Justice is refusing to be transparent about what he said and who he said it to. I have now asked the Supreme Court Public Information Office 5 separate times to be provided a copy of Roberts' full statement. I was hung up on twice, rudely told to send an email by someone who thought it was easier than just answering why the statement wasn't on the Supreme Court's website, and have sent multiple email inquiries that have been ignored by government employees whose sole job is to respond to media inquiries. Do these sound like the actions of an impartial jurist doing his best to defend the Constitution and the rule of law? Or does that sound like something a nakedly political partisan activist would do? You would think an institution that nearly got 2 of its own members killed after a leak of its deliberations would go to great lengths to make sure all statements and records of the court would be transparently provided to everyone at the same time, as opposed to leaking statements and comments about them from Supreme Court PIO staff to select news outlets for the purpose of politically shaping coverage. You would think that, but you'd be wrong. We've known for more than a decade that John Roberts is a political schemer, not an impartial jurist. His latest anti-Trump rant and his refusal to be honest and transparent about it only makes his gamesmanship more obvious and more dangerous to the legitimacy of the Supreme Court. And he's got screenshots here of his emails sent asking for, he's got the emails of the people he's emailing as well, asking them, can you please provide me a copy of Robert's statement that you already provided to numerous other media outlets, but for some reason are refusing to disclose on the Supreme Court website? And Vagrant says Roberts is fully in on this scheme because he's a coward and would rather secure his own position to do what is constitutionally right. Roberts is a snake and he won't let SCOTUS bail the country out on this one. It's up to Trump to take us there. And then Lee said the administration should simply quote tweet every insane district court ruling with this image and then keep doing whatever it wants. We have the best posters. And Aesthetica says, if you want an idea of how truly unprecedented this judicial overreach is, there have been 81 nationwide injunctions by district court judges in the history of our country. Nationwide injunctions by district court judges. 81 in the 249 years the country has existed. Right now, these rogue judges are on pace for 336 nationwide injunctions against Trump during his second term. And 55 of those 81 were from Trump's first term. So prior to Trump's first term, there were 26 nationwide injunctions issued by district court judges in the history of the country. Since then, we got 55, and now we're on pace for 336. The judiciary is going to lose this fight. $5 super chat from Duffhead. He says, smash the like button, Labians. We got 117 watching and 66 likes. Let's get to 100. Appreciate the super chat, my friend. So, let's see here. How far back in here do I want to go? Okay, we'll start with this. Z-Man says, in Trump's first term, the media so thoroughly disgraced itself that it lost all its credibility. Even the kooks think the media is all fake news. Now, in Trump's second term, inferior court judges are making such fools of themselves it's cratering the trust in the legal system. Everything the left touches turns to shit. And Jack Dobson replies, yes, exactly. Note that when a sitting president, Obama, attacked a sitting Supreme Court justice, Alito, to his face, Roberts remained mute. This was appropriate. What Roberts did today was likely the most reckless action in modern history. Trump needs to ignore the lower courts, period. Z-Man says, I read Roberts' plea as a submission. He is signaling to Trump that they will find the appellate courts friendly, so a war on the court is not needed. Which is an interesting interpretation. I didn't think of that, but I think it's actually very viable. Charles Haywood agrees. He says, I think this is the correct read. Roberts is a political actor. He knows he can't win, but wants to appear independent and anti-Trump so he's not disinvited from the right people's parties. And I don't think you can underestimate how powerful of a motivator that last sentence is. Not being disinvited from the right people's parties, it's really just about all it could come down to. I don't want my personal life to get uncomfortable. Think about how uncomfortable it was for people to lose friends during COVID. Lots of people were pretty traumatized by that. Man, I had family members, I had friends that just cut me off and never got to associate with them again. Now imagine being someone of esteem. Oh, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, a historic position, a historic name, John Roberts. And then you might get disinvited from the cocktail parties. Your wife might have friends start yelling at her. That'd be pretty uncomfortable. Maybe I could just put my head in the sand and just hope it all blows over. Yeah, it's not going to work out for you, buddy. I'd say I hate to tell you, but I don't. I actually love telling you that. Let's see. The FBI informant said he had some other posts about how Roberts was signaling to Trump that if it went to the Supreme Court, he would do their bidding. I didn't get it. You say he, do you mean Z-Man or Haywood? Let's see if it was Haywood here. Haywood says, I think I'll buy a Tesla Model S. Haha, here. You're going to have fun with that one. Haywood, okay. Let's see. I'm scrolling. I'm not seeing commentary on that directly. There's just the tweet that I just read, which is kind of like that. Basically, so Z-Man said, I read Roberts' plea as a submission. He's signaling to Trump that they will find the appellate courts friendly, so a war on the court is not needed. And I honestly, I don't see Roberts as how would I say this? I don't see him or his ilk as malevolent in the sense that I think they're mostly weak and cowardly. And so something like that would actually be pretty plausible to me, that he's like, please don't start, like, you don't need to impeach anyone. Don't worry about it. Just follow the process. Get it up to the appeal courts. You'll win there. Sorry, everything sucks. I'm not willing to clean my own house, but just be aware. Yeah, it looks really bad when you first walk in. It's really messy, but if you go to this part of the house, it's not too bad. I could definitely see that. All right. Let's talk about Scott Bessent. Scott Bessent might be my favorite member of the administration, at least to this point. And I know that's saying a lot, but I think I'll say is my favorite member of the cabinet by far. I've listened to so much, like anytime he's on like Bloomberg or CNBC, a bunch of his old interviews, I've gone back and listened to him. He is 100% thoroughly our guy certified. Entirely. He is entirely our guy. He gets it. He understands exactly what the problems are. And he's very, very good at hiding his power levels. Now, I've got a couple of one-off clips of him here, and then I'm going to share a couple of longer clips from his conversation on the All In podcast that just dropped yesterday. It is a must-listen. And I got to, well, okay, I'll talk about it more when we get to that. Let's look at these other clips here first. I apologize to you for putting Aaron Rupar on your screen, but there's a good reason for it. This banger line from him on Meet the Press the other day. And if you've listened to him for as long as I have, you can tell when he's extremely gentlemanly. He's a very dignified gay. Phil Gibson says, Scott Bessent is my favorite gay. Yes, he's an extremely dignified gay. In the All In podcast, at one point, one of them aired him out and said something about how, said something about his husband. And he replied and said he referred to him as my spouse because he's a dignified gay. He knows that it's not proper to be all out and proud about it. But this line here, you could tell that this line of questioning really just cheesed his ass. He was not happy about this, and this in like super nerdy financial wonk speak. This is him cooking.
Ask you about something that you actually said last week, and we'll discuss it on the other side. Take a look.
Access to cheap goods is not the essence of the American dream. The American dream is rooted in the concept that any citizen can achieve prosperity, upward mobility, and economic security.
Mr. Secretary, are you there essentially saying that the Trump administration is comfortable to have consumers pay more for goods in America?
What a bitch. This is it's so galling how brazen they are about this. It's very obvious what he's saying. Are you saying, going full Kathy Newman on him, are you saying that you're comfortable with Americans paying higher prices?
Not at all, Chris. What I was saying is the American dream.
You
is
dumb
not
bitch.
Let them eat flat screens. That if American families aren't able to afford a home, don't believe that their children will do better than they are. The American dream is not contingent on cheap baubles from China, that it is more than that. And we are focused on affordability, but it's mortgages, it's cars, it's real wage gains.
Do you acknowledge?
You can see the look on his face here. Look at him right here. He kind of leans forward a little bit. This is him trying to kill her with his mind. He's like, what a stupid question. How good is it to hear a Treasury Secretary talking this way? The American dream is not let them eat flat screens. That is a bar and a half. And then Maria Bartiromo asked him about this, and he twisted the knife a little bit.
Story. The other day, you were asked a question by another outlet. Can you guarantee that we're not going to have a recession? And you wanted to address that this morning.
Yeah, well, look, it was a silly question. Can you guarantee there's not going to be a recession? I can't guarantee anything. I can't guarantee that the journalist who asked me the question that her news program is going to be on in a year. What I can guarantee you is that there is no reason we need to have a recession. I think that there's the economy in the first quarter is doing better than the media is reporting. I think we're seeing some very good underlying data from credit card companies, from banks. I think that the airlines, which reported some bad passenger numbers, a big amount of that is from federal employees who are not flying right now. So the underlying economy is healthy.
Rob P says, I never thought we'd have a useful dandy as Treasury Secretary. Fender's Unbound says, we have the best gays. We do indeed have the best gays. I can't guarantee her news program's going to be on in a year. And note that when she asked him, she said something like, you wanted to respond to that. So he told her before this segment, I want to respond to that stupid question. And I've got a line prepared to dunk on her. And then there's this one.
The culture of being able to come forward when you see wrongdoing is a central part of our democracy. I saw these two fellows before the president's address to Congress in Speaker Johnson's office. They came over to me and said, you know, sir, we're still being harassed. And I had been in touch with Senator Grassley about what was happening to them, but seeing them in person really brought it home for me. So I went and decided I would bring them into Treasury, give them a year to investigate the wrongdoing that's going on at the IRS, and then they will go back in. Mr. Shapley will serve as the senior deputy for investigations and enforcement. So we'll have them in Treasury. We'll learn what's been going on at the IRS, what's been wrong, how could this Hunter Biden nonsense have happened, and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone again, whether they're Republicans, Democrats, or independents.
Sorry, the full context for that was the Hunter Biden IRS whistleblowers are the guys he's talking about. So the whistleblowers at the IRS about the Hunter Biden situation, they have been promoted to leadership roles in the Treasury Department. Yet another, they're going to be there specifically investigating IRS wrongdoing. Yet another example of this. So when Trump put together his cabinet, one of the things that a lot of people observed was he's taking the people who are directly familiar with or implicated in or have been wronged by the agency that they're now going to be in charge of. So Tulsi Gabbard at DNI, Kash Patel at the FBI, RFK at HHS. There's a bunch of these. They've been put in a position because they have an axe to grind, specifically related to the position that they're being put in. Now this is happening at the next level down. We've got cabinet officials who are appointing people beneath them who they find, who they uncover, who are whistleblowers or contribute. There was the other guy that, what was it? I forgot about this until just now. There was another guy that they did something similar to this with. I think it was at the IRS or Social Security Agency, something like that. Someone who reported some type of fraud was fired, and then they brought him back and actually fired the person who fired him and replaced him with her. This is so good to see. It's so good to see competence, patronage, rewarding the people who do good stuff. Oh yeah, the Space Force guy. That's another really good one. The same example. We are getting an administration full of people with an axe to grind against our enemies. I love it. All right, so here's this couple excerpts here from this conversation on the All In podcast with Scott Bessent. Now, I got to say, it one of the funniest things in the world to me, one of my favorite things this week, is that J-Cow was not invited. I don't know why he wasn't there, but I kind of know why he wasn't there. Because he would have just killed the entire conversation. It was just Friedberg and Chamath. Friedberg and Chamath were the only ones there, which meant they had a very good conversation. It was great. You could see Friedberg kind of nerding out. He was obviously very excited to discuss all these different things. And then Chamath is I enjoy Chamath a lot. But as soon as I saw this, I knew immediately. I'm like all the pieces just snapped together in my head right away. This is an official communication from the administration. This is a continuation of the podcast circuit during the campaign. So we took JD Vance and Trump did the whole podcast circuit. This is them like going to the alternative media, using a different vehicle for people to get to know them and to communicate stuff to the American people. That's what this is. This is not just like, hey, the All In podcast was like, hey, can we get an interview with you, Mr. Treasury Secretary? No, one of the hosts of the All In podcast is the crypto czar. He's already in the administration, is working closely, obviously, with Bessent, and they've lined this up, and I'll bet you there's going to be more to come. But this is the administration going out of their way to appear on a platform like this to communicate these ideas. So this is not just an interview. When you see administration members, cabinet officials going and doing interviews like this is not just them. You know, someone reached out and they're like, oh yeah, it'd be kind of fun to go talk to them for a little bit. No, this is the administration actively trying to use these different venues to communicate with us and to prime and to message and to signal, in this case with Bessent, signaling things to the market. So these are communications that you should take very seriously. So this little clip here, he's talking about Elon and Doge.
But with Doge, that I am completely aligned with what Elon's doing. And everyone says, well, do you have to do it so fast? Do you have to do it? Like I said, I've only been in this business for 7 weeks. I've only been in DC for 8 weeks. But the thing I can tell you is if you don't move fast, the vested interest will weigh you down.
Totally.
Like the quicksand will come up, or
the claws get
the claw. Yeah, everybody's got lobbyists. Everybody's got. Yeah. I mean, think about it. Within a 10-mile radius of here, 25% of the GDP of the U.S. pulsates through here.
Pulsates
every day.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to just skim a little. I said to Elon, we were in a meeting, and I said, you know, people are mad at you because you're moving their cheese. And he goes, it's not their cheese, it's the American people's cheese.
100%.
Right.
Every dollar spent goes into someone's pocket, and that person's going to fight tooth and nail to get that dollar to keep flowing into their pocket. And it's a very, like, there's no winning in Elon's role. There's every single time he takes action, there are people that are going to come after him, that are going to come after the administration. There's no and obviously gets recast, reclassified in the media as being something different, but there's nothing but downside as you make these changes to individual organizations that participate. And then it takes a while for the flow of that money to find its way, or those individuals to find their way back into the productive private economy. That's where I think there's a big gap and a big challenge in the perception of the actions that are going on with the changes right now, is everyone sees the cuts, but they don't see the benefits. And that's 9 months, 12 months, 15 months down the road. And that's a really hard thing to reconcile for most.
Yeah, and I'd say there are a couple of things too. Is one, like, everyone's hearing cuts and they think their government services are going to get cut.
Right. That's right.
And they're not. I keep saying it's the Department of Government Efficiency, not government extinction, not government elimination. Right. And can we make it run much better with fewer people, with fewer costs? And I don't want to demonize any of these federal employees, because I tell you, in this building, I've been so impressed with the quality of the people. I would have hired them in my private firm. They are great public servants. I need to stay for the weekend. I need a 25-page memo in 72 hours. The super high quality. I actually think when all this is done, there will have been two big savings. One will have been on these contractors.
Sure.
Which
totally. We were just talking about this.
We were with Elon just now.
We were just with Elon in the West Wing.
An incredible stat. He said, I'm not going to name the firm so that I don't want to, but he said this one organization gets 98% of their revenue from
I was in the
federal.
newspaper, so we can say it. It's Booz Allen.
Exactly.
So we were talking about
Yes.
this, but then we were going through the numbers on other firms, and it's just the whole
98% of their revenue comes from the federal government. Booz Allen. And I love, again, you get the petty gay guy. He's like, oh no, we're naming them. We're naming them. We've got an out. It's already been made public, so we're going to talk about them. 98% coming from the federal government. Absurd. Absolutely absurd. Before I finish the clip here, one of the reasons this clip stuck out to me that I wanted to highlight was that he talked about, this is the administration. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it's nice to get confirmation. The administration is giving this confirmation that they know if we don't keep the pedal to the metal, that any of this sort of really dramatic reformation type of activity is going to get strangled. It's going to get smothered in the crib.
It's shocking.
What kind of risk management is that, by the way?
Yeah.
Right.
But it tells you that they didn't manage the risk.
That's right.
Tells you how entrenched they believe they were,
And how good it is for them.
and how good it is.
You're absolutely right.
And the way the grift works, you can only have 6-month contracts, but there are people who have had 46-month contracts.
Incredible.
Like they've been in situ for 20 years.
Incredible.
And it's this whole.
I'm so happy there is transparency and visibility into this. If for nothing else, the administration providing this level of insight and data, I think, is so important for taxpayers and individuals in this country to see, to recognize, and importantly to understand just how much of this grift is going on.
Yeah, so Bessent, Furby Slayer here, says Bessent has very old American roots. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he's a 9th generation American, and he's a French Huguenot. I've also heard that he is I've heard from a very good source that he is a huge history buff. So and you can tell in parts of this conversation, the man is brilliant. The dude is like on an intellectual level, he is in a entirely different weight class than the Janet Yellens or Christine Lagarde's or Ben Bernanke's or any of these fucking retards. He's totally in a completely different intellectual class than they are. And he's brilliant. He's a brilliant systems thinker. He describes the way that the whole when he was with George Soros when they took down the pound, and they had their war against the Bank of England, and he describes the process that went into that. And he played a key role in making that happen. But apparently he's a big history buff. He very much loves to read, and you can tell by the way he looks and thinks about these kinds of cycles that he's got a very zoomed out perspective, and he's capable of going from like really zoomed out to really zoomed in, back and forth. He's very, I mean, you've got to be interested in listening to some of this sort of wonkery. But if you are, he's very enjoyable to listen to. I'd recommend going and just listening to old interviews and stuff that he's done. And he also is you catch little things he says every now and then that show that he's hiding his power levels. Like, for example, regarding immigration, his opposition to the mass forced migration is not strictly economic. Like, he makes the economic case and he makes it very well and very forcefully, but he says little things every now and then that that indicate that his opposition to it is much more foundational political than it is strictly economic. I wanted to respond to a question up here. A couple things, actually. Duffhead says, regarding Chamath, he says, $10 you can't pronounce his last name. Of course I fucked it up. Palahapatia, I believe is how it's pronounced. And then Phil Gibson says, Matt, are these communications a reformed version of Operation Mockingbird or something entirely different? White hat version? I don't. Are you asking? Excuse me. Are you asking, like, have they intentionally created these platforms to use as a marketing device, or are you saying that they're taking this sort of media approach very consciously and intentionally as a way of seeding narratives. Like, are you talking about like the creation of the platform in the first place was done? Like these podcasters were put into place essentially and boosted and amplified to serve as platforms for the administration to go out onto? Or are you saying that the administration is approaching this existing podcast network for similar reasons? Like there's like a similar motivating spirit to it. He says yes to both. I don't. So to the latter question, yeah, I think that's definitely a focus. I think that for lack of, to speak of it in like business terms, the marketing and advertising department of the business of the federal government, as it's being run by the administration, is very hip to the current media culture. They have their finger on the pulse, and so they're capitalizing on that with intentional media campaigns like this by key figures. And Bessent himself is going out of his way to go out and explain this stuff proactively very much. He says something, I think, in this interview. He says something to the effect of like, one of the things that I wanted to get to today was this thing, and this thing. So this is a conscious, proactive agenda for the administration. Were the platforms, I don't know, I don't think so, because like the platforms you'd be thinking about would be, Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan, maybe, Lex Friedman. I don't think Lex Friedman. I don't think that there's probably some crossover between some of the people who are financial interest behind Trump and the people who'd be financial interest behind Lex Friedman. But I don't think that's I like Sean Ryan. Maybe he'd be the one that I'd say has like the greatest credibility for it, and I've suspected that for a long time, that he's his growth isn't organic. And I don't say that. I like Sean. I think he's great, but yeah, Lex is not our guy at all. I do think that there are people who like him, who support him, who are also I mean, Elon. I think Elon likes him, but I don't think Sean Ryan's growth is organic, and that's not a criticism of Sean Ryan. I like Sean Ryan. I know the once CIA, always CIA, yada yada yada. But I like Sean Ryan, and I think his content is genuinely good. But as someone who hosts a show, I know that one of the best ways to grow it is through interviewing other people and talking to other people and bringing their audience to your show. So it isn't that hard. If you have the resources of a presidential administration, it wouldn't be that hard to preemptively astroturf a platform and grow it so that you can then use it later on. And of all of those, I would say Sean Ryan is probably the most likely candidate. But then, like Theo Vaughn, Flagrant, Joe Rogan, I don't think that I can't see any of those having been, astroturfed in some way, Operation Mockingbird style. I think it's more just the administration knows how the media market works, and instead of using traditional media and doing the traditional canned little short soundbite interview clip type conversations, they know that the long form world and the podcast world is where it's at now, particularly for their most core demographic, which is young white men. Let's see here. Oh, another $10 from Duffhead. He says, "I'll allow it." All right, I'm glad that I'm glad that my pronunciation was acceptable. FB Informant says, "All in grew organically at first, at least." Yeah, I mean, organically. Like once you're talking about a bunch of billionaires getting together to talk, I guess it might beg the question: like, is anything that they do organic? But as organic as it could be, yes, I think it was entirely organic. But like this here, this is not just the All In podcast being like, hey, who do we want to interview? Let's see if we can interview the Treasury Secretary. And they call the Treasury Secretary's office and they're like, "Hello, Mr. Secretary's Secretary. Can we get on the schedule to interview him?" No, this is like David Sachs and Scott Bessent talking to each other, and Scott being like, "Hey, I want to come on the show. We need to talk about this. It's probably much more like that. In particular, I think that becomes very obvious in this clip where so background to this clip real quick. I played a week or two ago, I played a clip on here of David Friedberg on the All In podcast talking about the three legs of the stool. This is like him making my best guess at like the optimist case for the administration's policy around tariffs. And so it's kind of surreal to have a podcast that I listen to regularly that, yeah, they're like, you know, wealthy businessmen and they're celebrities in their own rights and yada, yada, yada. But, you know, it's a podcast. It's a podcast I listen to in the circuits of all the podcasts. And it's on the outside, so to speak. And he makes this really good case, and I'm like, yeah, I think he's exactly right. I think that's exactly the intent that the administration has behind the tariff policy. This coming from my understanding of everything, having listened to Stormy and Tom Luongo and Luke Groman and then following the Bitcoin world and like all these different things kind of coming together. I'm like, yeah, I agree entirely with what he's saying. And here we have the Secretary of the Treasury himself coming in a week later and reacting to it directly and saying, yes, you're very close, and then here's some other stuff as well. So now we're getting, as Furby Slayer says here, people with actual power are talking to us without guardrails.
We're trying to do three things, and I think you may have talked about it last week before.
Yeah. The three legs on the stool.
The three legs on the stool, and from the outside, you intuited that very well. I would do just a little refinement on that.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, just tell me where I was right and wrong.
But you were adjacent to everything. Okay. So on one, we are trying to bring down this massive federal debt, cut the spending, but in a controlled way. Because you can't do it all at once. I don't like to repeat private conversations with the president, but I'll repeat this one because I think it's it really illustrates where his head was at. First time I went to see him, saw him at Mar-a-Lago, and walked in the door. He said, Scott, how are we going to get these debt and deficits down without causing a recession?
Fantastic.
And that's exactly where we are now. How are we going to get the debt and deficits down, not cause a recession? And I said, sir, when you win, you didn't get us here. We're going to set a goal by 2028. We want to get back to the long-term average. We're going to deflate it slowly. And
long-term average being about 3% deficit to GDP.
About 3.5% deficit to GDP. And like I keep saying, the U.S., we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem because we are averaging right about 18% revenue. And I'm talking about federal government, federal government only. We're at about 18%. And Biden administration blew the spending out to 25. Normally it's about 21 and a half. We have the 2% inflation, nominal GDP, real GDP is 1.8, so we get nominal GDP 3.8, and it all works out.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting. I had one of the heads of one of the Singapore sovereign wealth funds here last week. Guess what Singapore spends in terms of spending to GDP?
Deficit 3%?
They have no deficit, but they spend 18%.
18%.
18%. And he said, we have a lot in common with the Trump administration. We like small government, we don't like immigration, illegal immigration, and we like personal safety, which I thought was very interesting.
Sorry, so let me just understand. So deflating government spending is key, but the big challenge has been that we have now accumulated 30 some odd trillion dollars nearly of debt, and the interest on that debt has started to grow. We now have to pay $1.2 trillion in interest payments per year. So that starts to consume more of the spending budget that we have at the federal level, which means we can spend less on the rest of the federal government's programs. meaning you have to cut a lot more than you otherwise would have, which is what makes it so difficult and so painful. Is it realistic that you can get Congress to act in the way that Congress needs to act to get to the level that we need to get to, given the high interest payments and the high debt level that we have?
Yeah, and with this Republican Congress, and look, I'm not sure what a deficit hawk is, but I think I would qualify as one. And a lot of the Republicans, I actually have to coax them. You can't do this all at once. I was with one of the congressional budget committees 2 weeks ago, and they really want to cut this fast. And I said, you do realize every $300 billion we cut is about 1% of GDP. So we are trying to land the plane
right.
Well, and the plan, because that's really what I'd like to talk about today. I think there are 3 plans here, but plan 1, we're going to de-lever the government via the spending. We are also going to shed excess labor from the government. So on that side, and then on the other side, we're going to deregulate the financial
right.
system. The regulated financial system's really been in what I call a regulatory corset for a long time. And as we deregulate that, then the private sector can re-leverage. So government deleveraging, private sector re-leveraging, and the employment or the folks who lost their government jobs will be picked up and by the private
more productive.
sector.
So but this is
this is Friedberg almost the entire time was just champing at the bit to talk constantly. This is the exact story. This is the exact story that you've been hearing if you've been listening to our little corner of the internet for a little while. You're going to cut spending through Doge. You're also going to cut the government employment down, which is part of that cutting spending. So you get these people who are right now 25% of GDP is from government spending, which is being deficit spent, which has gotten us into this bankruptcy trajectory, where we've got to try to keep up with our interest payments, and we can't spend on the other things that we may need to spend on. So you have to get all of that reallocated. That's stuff that takes time to actually shut down all of those different flows, and then to get to remove all of the non-essential government personnel, which I think we really need to start calling them non-essential workers. Remove all of them, get them reallocated to the private sector, while also deleveraging the government. So this is from a combination of, you have to change a whole bunch of things just to delever government. And then you also have to deregulate to give the private sector more room to move, to navigate, to be flexible, and to boost their appetite to actually take on that the private credit. So replace all of this public debt with the private debt. Now I know a lot of people, oh no, we shouldn't have any debt at all. That time is not coming anytime in the near future. We have to deal with the world that we live in, not the world that you might prefer. There's always going to be debt. Debt is going to exist. Whether it's good debt or bad debt. The government debt has been bad debt. The regulatory regime has incentivized the creation of all kinds of bad debt. So changing all of these things at once, this is a lot of moving parts that if you don't get the sequencing right or the magnitude paired with that sequencing, then lots of things can break and go haywire really fast. I guess it's kind of it's good to hear that the Republicans are very aggressively wanting to go after the deficit, but as he also points out, the government spending has become such a large portion of GDP, and GDP still means a lot to a lot of people, that if you're going to clamp down on this really hard, you're going to cause a recession. Because just the existence of GDP number go down, psychologically, that's going to make people freak out. Ah! Everything's burning and crashing. You know, like right now, it's like, oh, everything's really unstable and scary. And you can go out for a walk and the sun is shining and the wind is blowing. And I don't know. I don't see any markets melting down here. But where they're melting down, they are melting down. So the U.S. already generates plenty of revenue. We don't have a revenue problem. We've got a spending problem. So we got to get the spending down. We've got to get government delevered. And then we've got to get the private sector relevered. Because this is the way that smart people build wealth. Smart people build wealth with other people's money. So they borrow, they take on smart debt to fund the things that they're working on, to then gain in advance ahead of the cost of the debt that they took on. But they're not going to do that if it looks like everything's crashing and burning around them. So they have to create the structural changes. And they also have to manage the psychological, emotional domain as well. And I think that's the purpose of this sort of conversation, is to say, look, this is what we're doing. He's laying it out for you just about as explicitly as he possibly could. And one interesting thing that he said in here, in this, I don't have a clip of it, but I'll just relay it. He said that we are not going to be revaluing the gold. He said it very explicitly. He was talking about the sovereign wealth fund, because they went on, they talked about the sovereign wealth fund for a while, and he said that when he talked about putting assets in the sovereign wealth fund, he said all the gold bugs were like, oh, he's going to revalue the gold. And he said, I can tell you right now, we are not going to be revaluing the gold. Last time he'd made a comment like that, it was more along the lines of, when I said what I said, I was not referring to revaluing the gold. So it was a very political answer that left the door open. Now he's saying explicitly, we are not going to be revaluing the gold. Again, you could take this as a very political answer. He's a gifted political communicator. So this could be, within this context, I'm saying we're not going to be revaluing the gold. And then if something changes, then he could say, oh, well, back then we weren't going to revalue the gold, but look at that. Gold price just passed $5,000. Now it makes sense to revalue the gold. But, yeah, so take that for what it's worth. Rob P says, champ and used properly, not chomping. I appreciate this. A fellow pedant. Okay, let's talk a little bit of stablecoins. This is going to become very important very soon. First of all, this is Bo Hines. He is the chair of the Digital Asset Council. I can't remember the exact name of it, but he's like the executive director, I think, of the Digital Asset Council that Trump put together. And this is him talking about the administration's position with respect to Bitcoin.
The U.S. has already acquired about 200,000 BTC. That's worth about $17 billion. Strategy CEO Michael Saylor is suggesting that the U.S. acquire up to 25% of the Bitcoin supply by 2035. What would be the target amount for the United States in your view?
Well, I get asked this question a lot, and I think the answer to that, like I said at the summit yesterday, is as much as we can possibly get, so long as it's in budget neutral ways that don't cost the taxpayer a dime. I think we have a lot of high IQ people in the building that are working on this, and
high
folks
IQ,
over at the Treasury office and folks over at Commerce, working with the internal working group that was set up in the first digital assets EO. We'll be able to come up with ways to accumulate more really over the course of the next few years and beyond that. I mean, look, we view Bitcoin as being digital gold. That's why we set up the strategic Bitcoin reserve in the way that we did, right? Bitcoin is a commodity. It's not a security. As our AI and cryptos are, David Sachs likes to say, it has the immaculate conception, meaning that there's no issuer. It has intrinsic stored value that's traditionally accepted. And we feel like it's in the best interest of Americans to hold on to this asset long term and accumulate as much as we can get. That's why we've akin this to digital gold and talked about building the digital Fort Knox for the United States. And, you mentioned the Bitcoin that we have possession of. We've actually been in possession of nearly 400,000 Bitcoin. We sold roughly half of that prematurely at about, I think it was close to $370 million is what we sold it for. If we would have held on to that, it would have been worth $17 billion today. I mean, it just goes to show you how important this asset is and what we can do with it to benefit the American people. One thing that I've said repeatedly throughout the media circuit is that I think it's really nice that we have a president that's actually looking to accumulate assets for Americans rather than take it away. unlike the last regime that we had here at the White House. But we feel very confident about our plan. We feel confident about the internal working group that was set up in that first EO. And I think we're going to have tremendous ideas on how to accomplish this.
That's a good line. I'm glad we have a president who's looking to acquire assets for Americans and not take them away. Assets like, I don't know, Canada. He is the executive director of the Presidential Council of Advisors for Digital Assets. And I just want to point out the fact that we've got a smart, handsome, well-dressed, dapper white boy with a high IQ talking about the high IQ team that they have, and we're going to acquire as much Bitcoin as we can get. For all the dooming that I've seen out there, this is just about the most bullish signal that you could possibly see for Bitcoin adoption, I would say. And again, we have another representative from the administration. He even calls it the media circuit. He's going out and doing a media circuit. He's going around to the instead of going to the legacy press, he's going to all the different subject matter related podcasts. I suspect that we're going to see future administrations adopt this media posture much more. I played that one there to play this one, where he comments on stablecoins.
If we want to talk about U.S. dollar global dominance, I think that we start with talking about stables. I mean, when this is implemented, it could revolutionize the global financial marketplace. It'll drive really billions, if not trillions, over the course of the next several decades into U.S. treasuries with the way that folks are interacting with payment rails and the way that they're interacting with their financial systems in their day-to-day lives. So we have some really key priorities that are happening on Capitol Hill in terms of stables and along with market structure, just to provide the regulatory clarity that the space needs in order to continue to innovate here and continue to lead the globe in terms of this technology. If we want to talk about...
Okay, so stablecoins. Got this article from Zero Hedge here. U.S. stablecoin bill likely in next 2 months, Trump's crypto council head. The Senate Banking Committee's bipartisan approval of the Genius Act means stablecoin legislation could arrive at the president's desk in a matter of months, according to Bo Hines. Bo Hines, the executive director of the President's Council of Advisors on Digital Assets, said comprehensive stablecoin legislation is expected to be finalized in the coming months, underscoring the government's urgency to maintain the U.S. dollar's dominance in on-chain activity. Now, if you don't crypto, I only barely do. I've just kind of dipped my toes in and I kind of watch from afar. But the reason why I'm bringing this to your guys' attention is because a lot of sentiment I've noticed even among some of our guys, a lot of sentiment is still views so-called crypto or stable coins or Bitcoin or this whole world. They still see it as kind of a sideshow. And I'm here to tell you, this is a key feature of the administration's priority stack. Being able to overhaul the global monetary system and position the United States from a trade perspective the way they want to is going to be the incorporation of both Bitcoin and stablecoins. Speaking at the Digital Asset Summit in New York on March 18, Hines said stablecoin legislation is imminent, quote unquote, following the Senate Banking Committee's approval of the Genius Act last week. The Genius Act, which is an acronym for Guiding and Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins, establishes collateralization guidelines for stablecoin issuers and requires full compliance with anti-money laundering laws. Quoting from Hines, it says, "We saw that vote come out of the Senate Banking Committee in extremely bipartisan fashion, which was fantastic to see. I think our colleagues on the other side of the aisle also recognize the importance for U.S. dominance in this space, and they're willing to work with us here, and that's what's really exciting about this. You know, there's not many issues in Washington, D.C. in which folks can come together from both sides of the aisle and really propel the United States forward in a way that's comprehensive." When asked about when stablecoin legislation will be passed, Hines said, "I think that stables could be on the president's desk here in the next 2 months. Right now, the market seems to be underestimating what this bill, quote, could do for the U.S. economy in terms of U.S. dollar dominance, in terms of payment rails, in terms of altering the course of financial markets," said Hines. The U.S. dollar accounts for the vast majority of the $230 billion worth of stablecoins in circulation, suggesting that the greenback remains the currency of choice for funding cryptocurrency accounts and sending remittances overseas. Some industry experts believe this will change in the future as stablecoins become multi-currency, but so far, digital dollars remain the overwhelming favorite. This is dollar-denominated stablecoins. You've got Tether, you got USD Coin, you got all these other ones. The biggest ones are Tether and USDC, especially Tether. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said the Trump administration will use stablecoins to maintain the dollar's status as the global reserve currency, which partly explains the sense of urgency to push legislation over the finish line. Basically what they're trying to do here is solve Triffin's dilemma and be able to have the benefits of the dollar being a global reserve currency while not having the cost associated with it, namely the necessity, the inevitability of having trade deficits and having all of your manufacturing and ultimately your military production capacity offshored. Bessent says, we are going to put a lot of thought into the stablecoin regime, and as President Trump has directed, we're going to keep the U.S. dollar the dominant reserve currency in the world, and we will use stablecoins to do that. It seems like kind of a misnomer to say like we're, or like a non sequitur, that we're in this new multipolar era where there is no global regime, one singular global superpower that dominates all the rest of them, but also we're going to keep the dollar as the global reserve currency. These things are kind of at odds with one another. But this is part of the significance of stablecoins is that it's going to allow it has the potential to allow this sort of a possible future. We give the final words to former U.S. Senator Pat Toomey. Quote, imagine a world where every dollar you spend is tracked, approved, or denied in real time by a government agency. You attempt to send money to a friend for a political donation, but the transaction is blocked because the recipient is on a government watch list. You buy a book critical of a powerful politician and your account is flagged for review. This dystopian future sounds outrageous, but it's the logical endpoint of a fully government-controlled and monitored monetary system for which some prominent U.S. policymakers advocate. Its defenders argue that such a government omniscient system would prevent crime. In reality, it would destroy the core freedoms of financial privacy and autonomy. Stablecoins are an existing alternative to this dystopia. They are both a major financial innovation and a bulwark against creeping financial authoritarianism. The U.S. Congress must support this technology as the Senate Banking Committee weighs legislation to provide clarity for the industry and its customers. End quote. Unfortunately, some senators, especially Senator Elizabeth Warren, stand in stark opposition to this progress. So now, another article from Zero Hedge. Eliminating archaic payment systems with stablecoins. This is authored by Simon McLaughlin, CEO at Uphold, via Cointelegraph.com. 2021 witnessed a fintech investment boom with startups raising approximately $229 billion globally. Higher interest rates and tighter economic circumstances have since tempered that exuberance, but funds continue to pile into the sector. Indeed, the global fintech sector is expected to see a rebound in investment activity throughout 2025. Why are investors continuing to bet big on this sector? The answer is simple. The current international finance system is in urgent need of modernization. Built for a pre-internet age, it relies on outdated processes, chains of intermediaries, and a patchwork of non-standard regulations. Take SWIFT as a case in point. Founded in 1973, SWIFT remains the backbone of cross-border payments. SWIFT is nothing more than a messaging system that enables banks to communicate around transactions. It was never designed to manage funds or process transactions. As a result, a make, do, and mend approach has grown around international payments, characterized by a proliferation of intermediaries and local payment rails. This antiquated, fragmented system creates significant friction in cross-border transactions, leading to delays, high costs, and limited choice for individuals and businesses outside major economic blocs. Fees for international payments currently average 1.5% for businesses and all the way up to 6.3% for remittances. Payments can take up to several days to reach recipients. So you're seeing here's the friction right now with the existing system. It's been sort of cobbled together because the technology demands have outpaced the technology supply. And so because the technology hasn't existed to suit all the demands, they've had to kind of jerry-rig stuff together. So it's antiquated and fragmented, and the result for that is significant friction in the form of fees and time delays. This system hinders global commerce and exacerbates financial exclusion, particularly in the global south, where volatile local currencies and limited access to traditional banking services are common. Many of these friction points could be resolved by stablecoins, making transferring money across borders as easy as sending an email. Indeed, the blockchain-based currency has the potential to revolutionize global finance, democratizing access to fiat currencies. For people in countries with volatile economies or unstable governments, stablecoins offer a safe haven for savings. Stablecoins, pegged one-to-one to a fiat currency such as the US dollar, provide consumers in these regions with a way to escape their national financial system with a trustworthy and transparent alternative that protects them from inflation and currency devaluation. This is particularly important in the global south, where economic instability can erode the value of hard-earned income and savings. According to UBS, consumers in developing countries are also attracted to stablecoins due to the lower risk of government's interference with the currency. The wealth management firm believes stablecoins are increasingly seen as digital dollars and used for everything from savings to transactions to remittances in these regions. Stablecoins can significantly reduce the costs and complexities associated with international payments, enabling small businesses and freelancers to participate in the global marketplace on a more level playing field. This opens up new opportunities for entrepreneurship and economic growth in developing countries. So how does this work? Like, what is the actual feature here? In our current payment system, physical money does not cross borders. Only information does. A payroll company looking to pay a freelancer in a third country cannot do so directly and must use payment systems, or must use systems like Stripe, which uses virtual bank accounts to get around the problem. With stablecoins, payroll companies can pay in any currency to any currency, using crypto on and off ramps to facilitate the payment. The business pays in dollars, for example, which is on-ramped to Tether's USDT and sent to the freelancer's digital wallet, where they can either keep it or off-ramp it to their local currency. Stablecoins will prove to be, and are, a vital tool in helping businesses access global talent and fill their skills gaps. So there's all sorts of applications for this, but essentially what it is like, if you're trying to transfer large, especially if you're transferring large sums of money, if you're doing it like right now, all it is it's not like if you're sending, I don't know, $10 billion to another country, you're not sending 10 billion pieces of paper. You're inputting numbers on a computer, and the computer is inputting numbers, and then another computer has numbers change, and then it gives you the right to withdraw X amount of dollars from that bank. But all that happened was a digital transaction. With a stablecoin, you have the capacity to, so the stablecoin, for example, say Tether, is pegged one-to-one with the dollar. So as the dollar goes up, the stablecoin goes up. As the dollar goes down, the stablecoin goes down. It stays one-to-one with it. So you can take your dollars and turn them into stablecoins, turn them into Tether. Then you can send that Tether to someone else, and that transaction will process extremely cheaply and almost instantly. So you're not having to deal with like exchange rates and waiting days for the money and all this sort of thing. And it also can be completely anonymized. You don't have to be. It's not like a normal financial, at least for the time being. Who knows what sort of regulations will ultimately place around it for anti-money laundering laws and such. But in theory, you could just transfer it directly. It happens almost instantaneously, and then they can take that Tether and they can convert it to whatever currency they have natively. This is so incredibly useful, and it's not for the you're trying to pay some freelancer in the Philippines or something. Like, that's not what's going to get this sort of thing across the line. It's going to be major commercial, institutional organizations that are transferring huge sums of money. Now, what is this sort of network an attack on? This sort of network is an attack on the Eurodollar system and the powers that have been amplifying it and siphoning our wealth off through it. Because the vast majority of their actual business model, it's trafficking drugs, trafficking people, trafficking weapons, and currency arbitraging. Maintaining, if you have an empire that's built off of maintaining shipping lanes, then you collect tolls for managing those lanes, and then you're living in the Forex market, exchanging currencies and arbitraging between them and playing economic warfare games with other countries by selectively choosing when to pile into their debt instruments and when not to, when to invest and try to crash their stock markets, all this sort of thing. Playing all these games within the financial market, the introduction of something like a stablecoin has the potential to do great damage to those business models. But there's more than that. Continuing with the piece here, though offering an alternative to traditional banking systems, stablecoins also provide financial services to the unbanked and underbanked populations. This can be particularly transformative in regions with limited access to traditional financial infrastructure, or in countries like Argentina, where there is low confidence in the national monetary system. According to the Bank for International Settlements, stablecoins can enable a wide range of payments and provide a gateway to other financial services, replicating the role of transaction accounts as a stepping stone to broader financial inclusion. Given their ability to provide access to financial services anywhere with an internet connection, stablecoins are seeing explosive growth in emerging markets. Use cases are expanding rapidly across Africa, Latin America, and parts of developing Asia, where they are being used to hedge against inflation, for remittances and cross-border payments, and as a simpler alternative to US dollar banking. This growth trajectory can be expected to continue in the years ahead. Stablecoins are rapidly rising in popularity and already total more than $233 billion in market capitalization, while transaction volumes in 2024 reached $15.6 trillion, surpassing those of Visa. This is an alternative to all the credit card companies too. In an increasingly uncertain world, they offer a stable, low-cost, and rapid means of transferring money across borders, helping to increase financial inclusion and smooth access to global talent for employers. Stablecoins are a digital-first financial tool for a digital-first world and are ideally suited to replace the current archaic international payments system. And then this article here popped up, also from Zero Hedge, Saturday, March 15th. Russia using Bitcoin and USDT for oil trades with India and China. This is authored by Helen Parts via Cointelegraph.com. Russian companies have been using cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and USDT to facilitate trade with China and India amid international sanctions, according to a Reuters report. Russian oil companies have used crypto assets, including Bitcoin and Tether's USDT, for international trade, reported by Reuters. 4 sources with direct knowledge of the matter. One Russian oil trader reportedly conducts tens of millions of dollars worth of monthly transactions using digital assets, according to a source who spoke on condition of anonymity due to an NDA. While the Russian finance minister, I love how the source is blatantly breaking an NDA and is just like, keep me anonymous. While a Russian finance minister publicly declared in late 2024 that Russia is free to use assets like Bitcoin in foreign trade, the use of crypto in oil transactions with China and India had not been previously reported. According to Reuters, Russia's foreign oil trade in crypto involves intermediaries who manage offshore accounts and facilitate transactions in the buyer's local currency. One example includes a Chinese buyer of Russian oil that pays a trading company acting as a middleman in yuan into an offshore account. The middleman then converts payments into crypto assets and transfers it to another account, which then sends it to a third account in Russia and converts it to Russian rubles. According to one of Reuters' sources, crypto will likely continue to be used in Russia's foreign oil trading, regardless of whether any sanctions are in place, and even if the sanctions are lifted and Russia is free to use the dollar. It's a convenient tool and helps run operations faster, the report said, citing the source. And here you see precisely why the Trump administration is making it a top priority to ensure that the most popular and widely used stablecoins are dollar-based stablecoins. Because these companies, so the companies that issue these stablecoins, they have to maintain. We saw one of the things in this Genius Act concerns their collateralization. So if you're going to offer this token that is pegged 1-to-1 with the dollar, then you need to, for the number of tokens that you've minted, you need to have sufficient collateralization to prevent a run on the bank effectively. And so one of the, I think Tether, if I'm not mistaken, is in like the top 5 holders of U.S. Treasuries. This is one of the main assets that they have held to back their tokens. So for the U.S. government to formally embrace the stable coins, and particularly Tether already, means they are interlinking the stablecoin, the global stablecoin network, and U.S. federal government debt. So that the government is being funded effectively by the existence of the global stablecoin network. This is the service that the United States is going to offer to the world. We're going to create the payment rails for global trade using stablecoins, the digital infrastructure. We're going to bootstrap that and put our credibility behind it. And in return, we're going to be enriched by providing this service to the world. That's how you maintain the global reserve, the reserve status of the dollar, while also walling off your market from the rest of the world. And it seems like it's going to be necessary then to create that. If you're going to close off your capital account, but you're also going to have your currency be the reserve currency, then you're going to need like a split currency. But you can see, even if the sanctions are lifted and Russia's free to use the dollar, they're like, we're still going to use the stable coins because it's cheaper, it's convenient, makes things run faster. The news comes amid the Bank of Russia officially proposing to legalize cryptocurrency investments for high net worth individuals who have at least $1.1 million in securities and deposits. While Russia has been increasingly open to Bitcoin, including its use in foreign trade, mainland China has maintained a cautious and restrictive approach toward cryptocurrency. Since banning virtually all crypto transactions in 2021, authorities in mainland China have maintained a restrictive agenda on crypto, while neighboring jurisdiction Hong Kong has emerged as a global crypto hub. Despite the restrictions, mainland China has remained one of the global leaders in Bitcoin mining, raising controversy over the application of its crypto ban. And here is a graphic from March 10. This is Bitcoin holdings by country. You see, of all the countries listed here, China has the highest estimated amount, 194,000 Bitcoin. Finland's got about 2,000 Bitcoin. Bhutan has 13,000 Bitcoin, proxy for China, basically. Ukraine has 46,000 Bitcoin. El Salvador's got 6,000. Venezuela has 240. The UK has 61,000. US is at 112,000, supposedly. As the U.S. moves forward with its strategic Bitcoin reserve initiative, some industry observers believe China will not ignore Bitcoin's growing role in the global financial landscape. According to data from the Bitcoin technology company Jan3, the Chinese government may be holding at least 193,000 Bitcoin. One of the other interesting things about Tether is that they just recently announced that they're going to be minting new Tether tokens going forward on the Lightning Network, on Bitcoin. So you're getting an intertwining. So you have Tether where they mint these tokens that are going to be key to creating the payment rails for global trade transactions. And they are backed largely by U.S. treasuries. They're one of the hugest buyers of U.S. treasuries to provide the collateral for their token. And then the tokens are being minted on the Bitcoin network, which is increasing the use case for Bitcoin. It's more activity on the Bitcoin network. And furthermore, one of the major use cases for Tether right now is Bitcoin transactions, because it's easier and quicker and cheaper to if you want to sell out of your Bitcoin position and you want to sell into the dollar, but you don't want to pay for that transaction, you could just sell into Tether. Tether's pegged 1-to-1 with the dollar. And so you could just hold, if you want to like cash out a position and then just hold it for a little bit in Tether and then buy back in again. That's one of the major use cases for Tether right now, is facilitating all the Bitcoin transactions. So what's happening here is they're basically creating like this intertwined network between Tether, Bitcoin, and the dollar. And they're saying they see Bitcoin as digital gold. The reason I keep bringing this up to you guys is, again, like I think I've got probably maybe $1,000 worth of Bitcoin right now. I've got a dollar cost average, $5 a day, bloop, 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 just picking up a little bit. That's all I'm doing. So this is not investment advice. I'm telling you, this is important to keep track of because of the these sorts of implications. All right. So I promised you guys the other day something that I have not delivered on. So I'm going to deliver on it now. This amazing rant from Tom Luongo at the end of his conversation 6 days ago on the Sean Newman podcast with Alex Craner. Todd Man 67 says, "This is investment advice. Put as much of your net worth in BTC now." He said it. Todd said it. Phil Gibson says it's going to replace the Forex markets, which destroys the city of London because 30% of all Forex settles in the British pound. Ding, ding, ding. So this epic rant from Tom was epic. So I must share it with you guys.
Then and then they always tell you, well, you have to work through the institutions to.
Sorry, I wanted to catch a little bit of the context of it. So there's a brief moment here with Alex Craner. I'm not going to apologize for playing Alex Craner for you guys.
Without those people, and then they always tell you, well, you have to work through the institutions to solve your problem. But the institutions are designed as a maze that you can never get out of, and you can only choose between the candidates that they serve up to you, and they control the both of them. The thing about dictatorships, let's call them autocracies rather, maybe it sounds a little bit less bad, is that it's a myth that dictators don't care about the public support, because even dictators are very, very sensitive to public support because they can be toppled, and then they end up like Mussolini, like Ceausescu, like many of them. Once the anger boils over, it's not like we're going to vote you out and then you're going to go to retire. You're going to retire from political life and you're going to spend more time with your family. No, we're going to hang you by the neck until you're dead. That's what happens. We're going to kill your whole family. So they are very, very sensitive to the will of the public and whether the people are satisfied with the rule or not. Second thing is that people in autocracies, people know exactly where the buck stops. There's no, these institutions and lawfare and all of this stuff where nobody understands what the hell is going on. Somehow they all end up screwed, but they don't know exactly how. It's just that the result is always obvious. What's not obvious is how exactly it happens, or let alone how exactly to fix it. And that's by design. This is what they call liberal democracies. And this is also why the people who are the most vocal defenders of democracy are exactly these people that gather in Davos and George Soros and Alex Soros and so forth and all these bankers. They are always like bleeding heart defenders of democracy. As though I believe that George Soros is very concerned that I should have power and not him. Give me a break.
Two things, Alex. One, beautiful freaking rant, by the way. Two things. One, about Sean's point about Trump becoming a quote-unquote authoritarian. What we're going to find out over the course of the next 4 years is...
If you guys aren't listening to everything Tom Luongo puts out, I don't know what's wrong with you. But if this is the first Tom Luongo rant you've ever heard, you are in for a treat, man.
What it looks like in the United States when we have a president who actually reads the Constitution and looks at the plenary powers that he actually has and then exercises those. And what you're going to find is that all the whining and like weird crap and how we're going to find out whether a traffic court judge in Rhode Island is going to be able to stop the president from cutting off USAID. I got news for you. He has that power. It's written right there in article in the Constitution. He has. What we've had is a series of presidents who have said, you know what? No, in the name of going along to get along, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to exercise my authority. Why? It's a good question. One, because most of them are globalists that are handpicked by the people who actually run the show. But there's another one. And what do they use? Again, go back to my original rant in this to start the show. Civility is a tactic, folks. It's a debate tactic to get you to stop stating your position. You don't have to, in any way, manner, shape, or form, allow the other person to say, well, you can't talk like that. What's the biggest complaint people have about me? He's blunt and he's rude. Right? Tom's language is awful. He's a dick. Yada, yada, yada. Fair. Guess what? It's a tactic, folks. It's true. Guess what? I do it on purpose. Why? To cut through the bullshit. Because civility and false civility is a tactic to defang you, to make you respectable. I'm not respectable. I'm angry with a big chip on my shoulder because a bunch of fucking pedophiles are running around trying to turn the world into all those terrible dystopias that I read as a child, and I don't want to live like that. So, I'm sorry. Sun Tzu, never fight on ground prepared by your opponent. Civility is ground prepared by your opponent. The European Union, the British, they always are the Northeastern WASPs, all of them, every goddamn one of them wrap themselves in the moral high ground and flowery language like democracy and all these euphemisms for we're just going to gas you and kill you if you don't do what we want you to do. How about fuck you? No. That's the world we have to we're going to get back to. That's the world that Donald Trump is telling you. That's the world that Vladimir Putin's biggest mistake was trying to be civil with a bunch of uncivilized Europeans. And now it's putting my boots on the ground, pushing in. What are you going to do about it? But it's unacceptable. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. We are at the end of consensus politics, and we are back to power politics because consensus politics was always a lie. It was always a lie. It was always the iron fist inside the velvet glove to make you think that you had a say in the matter when they were literally beating the shit out of you and stealing all your money. I think we started a revolution in this country on a 3% tax on tea. Today, they take 60% of our friggin' time. And they say we're not taxed enough. How about no? How about go fuck yourself and we'll call it even? Like, this is the attitude we all have to have. And I like at some point, we literally just have to say, that's enough. I mean, and this comes from a deeply held philosophical perspective. No, my life is mine, not yours. You don't own it. And I don't have to listen to you anymore because all you do is tell me how I'm supposed to act as a slave. Again, no. How about no? How about go fuck yourself? So yes, Sean, Alberta first. Yes, Tom, the great, the People's Republic, the Sunshine Republic of Florida, if necessary. We are this is why they are attacking us right now and trying to create a civil war between the falsely civilized and the truly civilized. The ones who say, you know what? I got weapons. I have kept them sheathed because in the interest of peace, in the interest of trying to find common ground with you people. There is no common ground with you people. Your common ground is submit or die. Like, I'm dealing with a bunch of Sith Lords. Peace is a lie. Star Wars was correct. Always. So, seriously, that's where we are, and we have to just admit that and move on. And now I'm unsheathing my sword, and you don't like it. And you're going to watch Trump use the presidency in a way that we have not seen. And
we already have.
Yes, we have, and we're going to see even more of it, and it's going to be glorious. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to go. I'm not going to clutch my libertarian fifis over here. I'm just not going to get all upset about it. I can't care. Because at the end of the day, what I hold philosophically about how I want to live my life is one thing. And how we have to deal with the fucking world that we live in is something completely different. And the world we live in today is using my internal philosophical conceit of wanting to treat people decently and live my own life and take responsibility for all of my actions. Yeah, I'd like to do that, but I can't in this world because that's literally been weaponized against me. So I'm at the point of going, no. And I can tell you, every time I talk to somebody who's a tradesman or this or that or a lower middle class, person just trying to get by and do the thing, and they find out what I do, and they hear what comes out of my mouth, and they go, stop. I don't need to hear anything else. All I need to know is one thing. What? When can we start shooting them? That's the attitude in America right now. And everybody better get their fucking heads around it. Because hell hath no fury about Americans scorned. Because we're the ones who fucked off from Europe. There are no Western values. There is no Judeo-Christian tradition. We're Americans. We're the Europeans who fucking left. And we're Americans now. We're not European. And you can't shame us with the fact that we left. We left because you people suck. Now, you don't like this rant? That's nice. You don't have to do business with us anymore. We don't need anything from you, and we don't owe you anything anymore.
Yes.
Now, you can stand up for yourselves, and we'll be happy to help you stand up for yourselves and throw off the same yoke that we're trying to throw off. Or you can send all our whiskey back across the border. Your choice. Doesn't matter. It's all good because it's over. And that is what we all need to do. And at the same time, none of these people get a chance to speak anymore And when they do start to speak, and they, well, actually, no. You know what? Fuck you. You wanted to put everybody who didn't get vaccinated into a camp. You wanted to cut my child's dick off because he had a thought this week. How about no? And that's where we all need to be. That's the mindset we need to be in. And once we're there, there's nothing they can do to us, and it all falls apart. So, all right, that's enough. I can do this for another 20 minutes, but I think we get the point.
Mr. Luongo, you got to be bottling up this stuff and bring it to Calgary in May.
Dude, I have an infinite well of this anger. Are you kidding?
What Alex is alluding to, and we haven't talked about, but you both are coming to Calgary May 10th of this year.
That's what I was alluding to.
Yeah,
yes.
That's going to be and there's a whole cast of characters, right? Martin Armstrong in attendance, which should be interesting.
I spoke to Marty the other day for the first time. We were on the podcast with Danny, and afterwards, I was chatting with Martin in email, and I said, looking forward to seeing you in Calgary, and I'm going to have him podcast later in the week, and we're going to, build a relationship. He said, that's if, of course, they don't close the border between us and Canada between now and then. I'm like,
yeah. I would say that's not entirely unlikely. Oh man, one of my favorite lines from him that I've heard Tom drop a number of times recently. It's so good. He says, "How about no? Fuck you, and we'll call it even." Oh yeah. Witt says, "I'm so disgusted by the Mises Institute because they still haven't released Tom's keynote for their conference this last fall." Yeah, that's as the kids say, that's a big L. That is a big old fat L for the Mises Institute, and. I don't know. Things don't seem like they're going to get any better over there anytime soon. And yes, FB Informant asked, is Luongo Italian? He is extremely Italian. He is delightfully, gloriously Italian. So go listen to Tom. He's join his Patreon. It's like $12 a month. Just go join his Patreon. You get his twice weekly market reports. You get the Slack server, and you get he has a podcast that he updates periodically as well. It's very, very good. And that was a shout out to Sean Newman. That was from the Sean Newman podcast. Okay. And then the last thing from the title today, this new discovery at the Giza Plateau. Now, I apologize. Listening to Tom is just delightful. I could just listen to him all day. This woman describing this discovery is very difficult to listen to, but the discovery is so mind-blowing that it's worth listening to. For those of you who have been History of the Pyramids podcast enjoyers, this is a real development. This is kind of a mindfucker for you.
According to a recent press release, the Khafre Pyramid, is the tip of a very large iceberg. So there was a big press release that came out of Italy made by Corrado Malanga, Armando May, and Filippo Biondi. So this is a model of what they found, and you can see a structure within the Khafre Pyramid, and then the amazing thing is you can see these structures that go down deep into the earth. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the information that's been released so far. Apparently there's going to be a lot more released fairly soon, but we'll just look at what we know so far. And I got this from Trevor Grassi's Facebook page. So thank you, Trevor. Much appreciated for keeping everybody up to date. So here's what we know so far, and we're getting this information from the abstract that was released on the 16th of March. Quote, this abstract summarizes the key points of our research, which aimed to clarify the possible hidden structures inside the second pyramid of the Giza Plateau, known as the Khafre Pyramid. This research was conducted using non-invasive techniques based on publicly available synthetic aperture radar, i.e. SAR, data, provided as open source by Capella Space and Umbra, and there's some websites associated with that. It then goes on to describe the first step that was taken before this, which was the project to scan the Khufu Pyramid, and a few of the results of that. In fact, I did an episode on this when the information came out, and I've since updated it. So you'll see on my channel there's a fairly recent version of that as well. So let's just keep looking at.
I'm sure this woman is very, very nice. I cannot fathom how someone could tune in and listen to her on a regular basis. My brain is screaming. And I wish I had more time to find a better video on this, describing this, because this is a story that I'm going to be following very closely going forward, because I've been very partial for a while now to the notion that the pyramids are a piece of technology. They're some sort of an energy generating technology that they're essentially like a generator that has something to do with the native resonance of the earth. And this new discovery lends all the more credence to that.
What the new stuff is. The tomographical images obtained from the satellite data processing immediately highlighted the presence of 5 structures located at the center of the pyramid above Belzoni's chamber, which contained a presumed sarcophagus, mistakenly believed to be the pharaoh's tomb. The abstract paper then goes on to say that these structures share the same shape as the so-called Z structure found inside the pyramid of Khufu, above the ceiling of the so-called pharaoh's or king's chamber. The 5 Zs in the Khafre pyramid appear to be connected by geometric pathways, and alongside these structures, additional secondary structures are visible from various satellite angles, as shown in some of the tomographical images. The analysis of this data, obtained using entirely non-invasive techniques, are briefly summarized. These findings allowed us to construct a 3D model of the entire complex. The examination of dozens of tomographical images obtained from different angles using Capella space and Umbra radars enabled a 3D reconstruction of most of the objects inside the pyramid of Khafre. Below, we present some images from our 3D analysis. The analysis of the structures above Belzoni's chamber are intensely coloured spots which can be observed appearing in all tomographic images taken from different angles corresponding to the internal artificial structures. On the next page, it says that improvements of the signal-to-noise ratio revealing the internal structure of the 5 Zs, consisting of 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof. So this is the raw pictures of the data that they used to create their model. And this is the model. So it reads the tomography with another cross-sectional line showing the presence of vertical structures. And if you think that was pretty mind-blowing, it then goes on to say, as observed in the 3D model below the ground level, so ground 0 of the main structure, vertically aligned cylindrical structures extend for hundreds of meters beneath the Giza Plateau. Notably, 8 of these structures, arranged in 2 parallel rows from north to south, descend to a depth of 648 meters, merging into 2 large cubic structures measuring approximately 80 meters per side. These features are illustrated in the topographical images and models presented. The paper then adds to that with some even more interesting detail, which is that the 8 cylindrical structures that have been identified in the tomographical image appear as vertical wells, which are hollow inside and surrounded by descending spiral pathways. It then goes on to describe the third step, which is a lot of the analysis they've done based on all this data that they've collected. So they say the next phase involved analysing the tomographic data to determine the full extent of the underground structures beneath the Giza Plateau. The tomographic images clearly reveal that the structures exist beneath the plateau, extending below the pyramids of Khafre, Khufu, and Menkaure for approximately this 2 kilometers below ground. So mind-blowing as all that is, there's still more to come. And this is just a little bit of the information that they have shared with us so far. So we can look forward to a lot more to come out fairly soon. And I will keep you posted. In the meantime, this is a look at some of the models and some of the data.
Oh. This is wild. 2 kilometers down.
Notably,
this whole I can't wait till this actually gets on to the podcast circuit. This might be an episode of Joe Rogan talking about the pyramids that I actually tune into, because I mean the first thing that comes to mind when I see this is very obviously some sort of an energy generating structure. That exit alone was worth 1776. Furby Slayer. Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind for me here is that this is further evidence of this being some sort of a power generating device that it's going 2 kilometers down. That is somehow it's drawing energy, whether it's from resonance and this like it's geometric construction that amplifies this resonance and converts it to power somehow as it sends it up to the center or something like that. Or these are like this is like a stairway. I don't know what exactly the scale for this is, but are these like spiral staircases that are going down? And then this is some sort of chamber with who knows what in it. I do know that given all the politics surrounding the Giza Plateau and how closely held it is and all the, ethnic squabbling around it, that there's anything that gets out to us is going to have already been filtered and qualified and massaged. But yeah, I think this is a pretty profound development. One of the most profound archaeological developments in I don't know, centuries. Wit says losing and forgetting this technology was getting kicked out of Eden. You know, I think there may be something to that. We might have to have a schizo stream on stuff related to this at some point in the future. But and then Isaac says, I believe the pyramids predate Atlantis. I agree. I think so as well. It's already hit Alex Jones. Okay. There's a very interesting angle on this. If you want to get ahead of me finding some way to talk about this in further detail, what's the guy's name? I just completely spaced. Hold on. Let me look at my my subscriptions. Robert something. This is killing me. Hold on, bear with me for just a second. Then I'm going to play you guys something that's a little bit of a palate cleanser after having put your ears through that last experience. I can't. Oh, Robert Edward Grant. That's who it was. Yeah, Robert Edward Grant. He's got some very interesting. I'll just post a link to his channel in the show notes over on the King Pilled Substack. He's got some very interesting analysis about the Giza Plateau is the mathematics that it went into the geometry of its construction. It's basically like a musical chord. So there's something very intentionally acoustic about the whole design. And then there was, you had the Nile, you had water that was flowing under it, and it seems that there was some sort of a process being used for generating power and amplifying it through the water, or some sort of. It was clearly a pretty sophisticated scientific technological instrument. And then the mathematics of it, and then he has a bunch of stuff with my brain is clearly winding down for the day. Michelangelo. And the squaring the circle and all that sort of stuff. So anyways, Robert Edward Grant on YouTube. He's got some very interesting stuff on that. You have to wade through. Be careful. Some of the links, if you scroll through them, you'll see that some of the links are very cringy. But if you go to, there's a series he did for Gaia called Code X, and it wasn't Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci. He has Giza, the Holy Grail of geometry. He's got some interesting stuff that talks about the mathematic properties of and the acoustic properties of the Giza Plateau. All right, last thing for you guys here tonight. This is from the Putna Orthodox Monastery. Come and receive light. Sit back and let your ears be blessed. That bass was one of the reasons why I wanted to play that one for you guys. Yeah, that was getting me really excited for Pascha. If you guys want an experience, go to the Pascha service at your local Orthodox church. Late Saturday night. I very, very strongly recommend it. You won't regret it. Your feet will hurt, and then stay for the feast afterwards. All right, guys, that's all I got. Hulk's warming up, so let's see the Hulk emotes in the chat. Some Trumps. You got to do a little more recognition of the Trumps, the Trump sufferers, those who are dealing with the consequences of Trump-related ultramassive penis syndrome. We respect them. We send out our love. So drop some Trumps in the chat in their honor and to help us combat the algorithm. Follow me on Twitter @RealKingPilled. Subscribe to the YouTube channel here. Hit the like button. We're at 85. We still got 91 watching. Hit the like button. Let's get as many as we can on the way out. Drop some oinks in the chat for Snorderk, and in honor of Pig Durk and Pig She's newest daughter. And I will be back tomorrow with another episode of the ASTROLABE. Go join the King Pill Discord at kingpill.com, where the show goes on round the clock. For now, I give you Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania